After seeing Jian Qingxiu, Huan Chuyou's face was cold. Principal Jian. For the humiliation they had suffered in front of Lingyin College, Huan Chuyou had clearly not forgotten, and now he had to show his attitude to Jian Qingxiu. If he was letting it be, wouldn't the other party just step all over them? Huan Chuyou was cold, and his expression was ugly, but the smile on Jian Qingxiu's face never changed. Old friend Huan, previously I was in closed-due cultivation, so I did not know that such a big thing happened, and it made you unhappy. Lingyin College is getting bigger and bigger now. Even a guard can treat us like that. It seems that the principal wants us to lose face. The voice of Huan Chuyou was showing his slight annoyance. The thoughts of Jian Qingxiu. How could he not understand them? Retreating? With the simple and clear temperament, how was it possible for him to retreat? He would do anything in his power to win this. They had lived in this inn for 2 days already. If Jian Qingxiu really put any importance on them, then he would have arrived long ago, not just now. He was just showing off. Since he was showing off, then Huan Chuyou would also show him what it meant to show off. Old friend, I am really not aware of this situation, Jian Qingxiu quickly said. When I heard about this matter, I instantly fired the guard. He dared to balk you like this. He truly had no eyes to see how important you are? However, Huan Chuyou was unmoved. Old friend, what the principal said was true. I hope you will be the bigger person and not squabble with the guard. The vice principal of Lingyin College also said, I don't believe that a mere guard has the courage to act like that. Huan Chuyou's eyebrow rose slightly. Today, Cang College and Lingyin College had long since fallen out. Since they were doomed to be enemies, why should he allow his students to suffer? You have to give me an explanation for this situation. Huan Chuyou had a serious expression on his face. This was related to the reputation of the entire college and the face of the students. If Lingyin College does not give them an explanation, then they will be ridiculed a lot more when entering the Lingyin College. He did not want to see this. Seeing Huan Chuyou being so firm, Jian Qingxiu and Lin Yinghao couldn't help but look at one another. They had not expected that he would be so firm about this situation and not let go at all. They had wanted to make a quick solution or this problem, but now it seemed that it was impossible. Old friend, this happened because of our Lingyin College not handling things well. I will apologize to you, Jian Qingxiu said. As for the guard daring to do such things, I will investigate clearly and give you an explanation. Is this good enough? Jian Qingxiu was quick to apologize. What he wanted was to thoroughly defeat the college through the tournament, so he did not care about apologizing for this matter. After the failure of Cang College, once more, who would care about what Huan Chuyou said? Baili, Hongzhuang, and the others looked at one another. On the surface, this principal was quite good. If they did not know better, they might even be tempted to believe that he would really give them an explanation. However, after experiencing many things, they already knew how to tell the truth from lies. If it was not for the sake of the tournament, Jian Qingxiu would not even have come to find them. Seeing the change in Jian Qingxiu's attitude, the coldness on Huan Chuyou's face faded slightly. Then we will wait for Principal Jian to give us an explanation. What a stubborn old man. Jian Qingxiu's heart was swearing, but on his face a sincere smile was making it impossible to see his true thoughts. Of course, in the last few days, you and your students have lived in this inn. I have already prepared a place for you to stay at the college. Since the problem has already been solved, it would be much better for you to follow us back to the college. Otherwise, others might say that our hospitality is lacking. Lin Yinghao also said, the principal has done the best he could. Tomorrow is the day that the college tournament begins. It is more convenient if you are at the college already. What a group of old foxes. Are they really that afraid that we will run away? Bai Junyu sneered. Tomorrow was the day that the college tournament would begin. It was not before now that they came to ask them to move into the Lingyin College. Seeing this, it was likely that they were seriously afraid that they would leave like this. What else could possibly be the reason? Xia Jiqing's eyes revealed her disgust. We have to perform well at the college tournament. Now it was no longer just a question about the college's honor. They were up against a college that they loathed. They would do almost anything to be able to leave the Lingyin College victoriously. Haven't they just won 2 consecutive tournaments? What's so great about it? Baili Hongzhuang and Gong Xiaoqing. It's up to you two to beat them up. Bai Junyu's face was filled with anger. Their interaction with Lingyin College had not been pleasant so far. Also, the insult and humiliation they had suffered before, they had not forgotten. Listening to the words of Bai Junyu, Baili Hongzhuang, and Gong Xiaoqing had a bit of helplessness in their eyes. They had thought that Bai Junyu was preparing to shock the opponents with his strength at the tournament. They did not expect that he was throwing it all on their shoulders. This guy was really, in the end, after the invitation of Jian Qingqiu and Lin Hao, Huan Chuyou took Baili Hongzhuang and the others to Lingyin College. However, this time was vastly different from the first time. This time the president and vice president were personally leading the way. Who would dare to stop them? All the way to the Lingyin College went smoothly, and they all saw what the inside of Lingyin College was truly like. They had already known earlier that Lingyin College had a strong financial backing. The equipment of the college had to be the best of the best, but when they saw it with their own eyes, did they realize that it was even grander than they had originally thought. Sure enough, this is a royal college. This is a perfect arrangement. It's just more glamorous and gorgeous. It's actually useless apart from looking good. Xia Jiqing snorted. She was so disgusted with the Lingyin College that all that she saw was useless in her eyes. Baili Hongzhuang quickly understood the situation of the Lingyin College. The campus was much larger than Cang College, and it also had more students. However, she had already heard that a large area of the Lingyin College was exclusive to members of the royal college. The royal family held the highest status here. They were high above and never interacted with the ordinary cultivators. As such, the amount of ordinary students at the Lingyin College was not much more than what the Cang College had. Under the guidance of the principal and vice principal, Baili Hongzhuang and the others were slowly led to their accommodation. IT happened to be in the same building as the Beihai College students. Oh, that's the students of Cang College. I heard that they were blocked outside the college and left. I did not expect that they would be picked up by the principal and vice principal today. Cang College already lost twice in a row. This time, they will undoubtedly lose again. The fact that the principal and vice principal have to pick them up, do they even deserve this honor? Let them be. Today, they can feel a bit of prestige. Tomorrow, when the tournament begins, they will just be a joke. The cultivators of Lingyin College were obviously looking down on the cultivators from Cang College. At the moment when they saw Baili Hongzhuang and the others, they did not hesitate to ridicule them with their words. Listening to the words of everyone around them, Baili Hongzhuang and the others had the same expressionless faces. They had long since expected this. It was obvious that the teachers and the principals of the Lingyin College had been degrading the students of Cang College in front of their own students. Otherwise, how could all of them be like this? The students of Lingyin College are all really annoying. Little Black's eyes were full of anger. What a joke. These useless idiots even dare to laugh at their owner? Absolutely looking for death. I want to directly slap their mouths. Little White was even angrier. These people, if they don't want their face, then they could just shut up completely. Cang College has lost twice in a row. It is expected that these people will mock us. If I want to shut them up, then I have to rely on my own strength. Baili Hongzhuang was very casual as she was facing this. The unrelenting sarcasm and the verbal attacks could not affect her at all. Compared to the ridicule she had suffered before, this was truly nothing. Instead of being unhappy about this kind of thing, it was much better to think about how to make all these people unhappy tomorrow. Xia Jiqing was full of anger. These people were truly too much. The faces of Gong Xiaoqing and the others were also ugly. They had always been respected and worshipped in Cang College. Now they were the ones to be ridiculed by everyone. The gap was truly too big. Jian Qingqiu also heard the words of the people around him, but he pretended that he heard nothing and never stopped them. The smile on his face even extended slightly. This building has been prepared for you to rest. You can relax until the college tournament begins tomorrow morning. Jian Qingqiu laughed. Huan Chuyou said to Lu Huayin and Fu Hongbo, "Bring the students inside and settle. I have some things I need to discuss with the principal." Liu Huayan nodded slightly and immediately led Baili, Hongzhuang, and the others inside. Minter, these students from the Lingyin College are too annoying. As soon as they walked down the corridor, Xia Jiqing couldn't help it anymore and complained. Even the hospitality was so bad. This was truly disgusting. Liu Huayan and Fu Hongbao's faces were also not pretty. Lingyin College has always been too much. You have been wronged by them. Listening to the words of the mentor, Xia Jiqing's eyes flashed slightly. They were already so unhappy, so they could imagine that their mentors and the vice principal were even unhappier. As long as we defeat the practitioners of Lingyin College tomorrow, then they will shut up completely, Cui Haoyin said coldly. However, the expression on Liu Huayan's face was still solemn. The team of Lingyin College is also very strong. They have a lot of strong cultivators. They suddenly proposed that the tournament was moved forward. Hearing this, the look of Baili, Hongzhuang, and the others looked heavy. They had not entered their own rooms right away, but gathered in one together. Tomorrow was the day that the college tournament began. They believed that the two mentors had something to explain to them. After all, they had absolutely no knowledge about the Lingyin College so far. The so-called know yourself and know your enemy determines the victory. They needed to know at least a little information about the other party so that they could prepare for the fight tomorrow. The strongest of the cultivators in Lingyin College is the crown prince of the Qing dynasty, Nangong Aochen. Nangong Aochen is now 18 years old. 2 years ago, his strength had already reached the innate realm. Now that 2 years have passed, I don't know how much he has grown. Nangong Aochen is 18 now. Wasn't he only 16 2 years ago? Xia Jiqing exclaimed. A 16-year-old innate realm. This talent was truly one of a kind. Liu Huayan nodded slightly. It is said that he will graduate from Lingyin College next year, so they want to use him as their trump card to win this time. As soon as he had said the words, Gong Shaoqing and the others understood that. This Lingyin College is truly too treacherous. Since he would not be there in 2 years when the tournament was supposed to have happened, the chances of winning would be lower, and thus they move it forward. Liu Huayan and Fu Hongbao's eyes were also filled with contempt. Lingyin College had done all this step by step. So many dirty methods have been used. In addition to Nangong Aochen, the strength of the second prince, Nangong Xiujie, has broken though into the innate realm, and the third prince, Nangong Yujin, is not that far from breaking into the innate realm. Besides them, there are other cultivators, but these are from the royal family. The three princes are the trump cards of the Lingyin College. Because of this, the pressure on you is immense. Fu Hongbao's voice was heavy. If there was only Nangong Xiujie and Nangong Yujin, they still had Baili, Hongzhuang, and Gong Shaoqing. Those two could deal with them. However, the strength of Nangong Aochen was simply too massive. The chances of winning were low. Xia Jiqing and the others faced one another. This situation was much more serious than what they had initially thought. They did not expect that Nangong Xiujie and Nangong Yujin were this outstanding. This was going to be a difficult win. I have received news that Nangong Aochen will not appear in the beginning. He won't come out before the finals, so you won't meet him tomorrow. Liu Huayan added. The strength Nangong Aochen held allowed him to obtain this privilege. In front of this tournament, if you wanted to fight Nangong Aochen, then you had to win. It is not meaningful to just participate in the tournament. It was best to give the chance of fighting Nangong Aochen to someone strong. Minter, then what about the cultivators of Beihai College? Lu Qinwei could not help but ask. Bai Jinyu was also puzzled. Yes, what about them? They have also lost 2 consecutive tournaments. Why are they so proud? He really could not understand this point. Obviously, they were also losers. Fu Hongbao's face showed a bit of helplessness. That is because the first place in the last 2 college tournaments has been Lingyin College, while second place has been Beihai College. Cang College has placed third both times. Baili, Hongzhuang, and the others suddenly understood. One after another, they had been last. It really sounded quite bad. Seeing the expressions of Baili, Hongzhuang, and the others, Liu Huayan could not help but say, the reason that Cang College is always last is because Lingyin College and Baili College have joined forces. In the previous tests, the students of Lingyin College severely hurt our students, so it was naturally impossible for them to get good results on the second day. Lu Huayan and Fu Hongbao's eyes gleamed with anger. If the other side did not use such underhanded means, they might not have failed, but because of their actions, they lost in this way. How could they accept it? Seriously, the Lingyin and Baili colleges are simply too much. Baijunyu cursed. This was despicable and shameless. The other party did not even want their faces. Lu Huayan was helpless. There might be injuries in this tournament. The other party will claim it was by accident. We are helpless to do anything. This time you must be careful. Even if you can't win, make sure you don't die. Although the results are important, in our eyes, you are more important, Fu Hongba said seriously. When the words came out, everyone's hearts were touched. Compared to many mentors who only cared about results, Lu Huayan and Fu Hongba always put their safety first. The strongest amongst the cultivators of Baili College is Shaolan. He has also broken through to the innate realm. Once you meet him, you have to be extra careful. As the two mentors explained the situation of the different students from the two colleges, the mood of everyone turned heavy. Lingyin College had 2 cultivators in the innate realm. There was also one in the Baili College. These 2 colleges had united, while Kanglin only had Baili Hongzhuang at the innate realm. As a result, they were in a difficult position. Gong Shaoqing was right on the verge of breaking through the innate realm, but a slight bottleneck was in the way. It was a pity that breaking through to the innate realm required opportunities. Only by grasping the opportunity could they successfully break through. Otherwise, they had no other choice than to wait. Although the face of Gong Shaoqing was expressionless, his heart was a bit eager. If he could successfully break into the innate realm, then their success rate would increase a lot. When Baili Hongzhuang returned to her room, Little Black and Little White had jumped directly from her head and sat on the table opposite to Baili Hongzhuang. Master, this situation is not very good, Little Black frowned. We do not know how strong this Nangong Aochen is. Little White nodded. He broke through to the innate realm 2 years ago, and with the cultivation resources and heritage of the royal family, I believe he has at least reached the 4th stage of the Red World. Baishi climbed from the arms of Baili Hongzhuang onto the table, its face filled with expectations. Master, can I participate together with you? Hearing this, Little White's eyes shone brightly. Yes. Baishi is Master's contracted beast. It should be able to fight alongside you. In the Hongxian continent, a contract beast is also a part of the cultivator's strength, and it can be used without it being considered cheating. Baili Hongzhuang's eyes were flashing in deep thought. I don't know the rules yet, but I will know when the tournament starts tomorrow. If you can bring Baishi to the tournament, naturally that would be for the best. If you can't, then there is nothing to do about it. After all, this is a college tournament. They should officially care about fairness, so that they might not allow pets to fight. The next day, Baili Hongzhuang and the others gathered outside the house early in the morning. Here, Huan Chuyou, Lu Huayan, and Fu Hongba stood and waited for them all. This college tournament begins today. Tomorrow is also a tournament. The 3rd day is the alchemy tournament, and on the final day is the finale. Huan Chuyou said slowly. Since they went to the ruins, Yue'er had focused fully on refining medicines, so she had a chance of winning this tournament. Not only Yue'er, Lingyin College and Baili College also had cultivators who participated in the alchemy tournament, so today's fight had 7 people from each college, a total of 21. Amongst these 21, Nangong Aochen had already advanced to the final, making it so that today, only 20 college students would participate in the battles. This time the fight is related to the reputation of our school. I hope you can all do your best and get good results. Huan Chuyou's voice was solemn, looking at Baili Hongzhuang and the others with a deep pride. While Nangong Aochen was the most valued student in Lingyin College, these students are the most valued in Kanglin College. Vice Principal, rest assured, we will do our best. Baijunyu was the first to answer, his expression serious. This matter was not only about the college's reputation, but also for their own honor and disgrace. Baili Hongzhuang, Gong Shaoqing, and the others nodded their heads. Now that they were here, there was no way to back away. Seeing the expressions on Gong Shaoqing and the others, the faces of Huan, Chuyou, and the two mentors were all happy. You just need to do your best. I believe in your strength, but your life is the most important. Although the tournament states you can't kill, it is hard to avoid getting yourself hurt. You should be careful. We understand. Since everyone is ready, let's set out. Huan Chuyou's face was filled with a faint, prideful expression as he led Baili Hongzhuang and the others to the ground where the tournament was being held. Today was the most lively day in the entire Lingyin College because of the college tournament. Early in the morning, many students rushed to the contest grounds. They wanted to witness the glory of Lingyin College. The princes, which are hard to see on normal days, would also appear. When Baili Hongzhuang and the others came to the contest grounds, they saw a horde of people. All the students had gathered here. It was impossible to see what was going on inside. Fortunately, a passage had been cleared for them to enter, otherwise it would have taken them a long time to squeeze through. There really are many students at the Lingyin College. Zhang Yunfeng couldn't help but sigh. It is not only students of Lingyin College. Even normal citizens can enter and watch. That's why there are so many, Cui Haoyin said while shaking his head. Chapter 711. Princess Nangong Yue'er listening to Cui Haoyin's words. Everyone was somewhat stunned. It seems that Lingyin College is certain of success and wants more people to see their victory. Baili Hongzhuang's eyebrow raised slightly. A college tournament was usually only for the students of the college. Outsiders should not be allowed inside to watch. Lingyin College's move was a bit unexpected. Not only this, Yunjue said slowly. It is said that tomorrow, at the final, the Qing dynasty's emperor will also come and watch. They are very sure of themselves. Together with the end of Yunjue's sentence, the expression on the others' faces changed again. It seemed that the Lingyin College wanted to make this into a big matter. Nangong Aochen is the crown prince of the Qing dynasty. He will be extraordinarily strong in battle. We have to be very careful. Gong Shaoqing said slowly. After Baili Hongzhuang and her friends walked into the dense crowd of people, they saw that the cultivators from Lingyin and Baihai College had already arrived. The faces of these people held a deep smile. After seeing Baili Hongzhuang and the others, their smiles even showed a dense sarcasm. The students of Kangling College are really important. They showed up last. Lu Jingqi said coldly. A woman from Lingyin College listened to her words, after which she said, "They know that they will be shamed by coming here today. Naturally, they won't come early." The woman was wearing a pink and purple dress. Her skin was fair and white, and her appearance was outstanding. A strong pride and elegance could be seen in her aura. This was the royal princess, Nangong Yue'er. They are too much. How bad was Xia Jiqing's temper? The moment she heard the words of Nangong Yue'er and Lu Jingqi, she couldn't help but want to argue. However, Baili Hongzhuang pulled her back and said, "They have a lot of people. We won't be at an advantage, so don't let them use us to start a fight. It is better to say they can see the real fight on stage." Xia Jiqing's face turned a myriad of colors, but she knew that Baili Hongzhuang was correct. If they fight now, then that is not a good thing. I pray for me and Lu Jingqi to be in the same group. I have to tear her mouth apart. Xia Jiqing's eyes flashed with anger. This annoying woman, she definitely would not allow her to be happy. Baili Hongzhuang nodded slightly, and the eyes she used to look at Lu Jingqi were cold. This woman was arguing all day long, but her actual strength was so weak. If Xia Jiqing really had the opportunity to be in the same group as Lu Jingqi, that would be good. Then she could be taught a lesson. Gong Shaoqing and the others directly ignored the words of the people around them. In this kind of environment, only their strength would be able to show their qualities. Like Lu Jingqi, they thought she was just a clown jumping around. After seeing the team from Kangling College, a deep smile spread across the face of Jian Qingxiu. The next moment, Jian Qingxiu went directly to the high platform, and his handsome face was full of joy and held a smile. Today, the college tournament begins. The college tournament is a tradition between our three colleges, which has existed since the beginning of our colleges in an attempt to promote the cultivation of our students. I now announce that the college tournament officially begins. With the words of Jian Qingxiu falling, thunderous applause spread out around them. Everyone had waited for this moment for a long time. Chapter 712. Love at First Sight. This college tournament uses lottery to determine your opponents. There are 7 cultivators from each college who participates in the contest. Because of the special status of Crown Prince Nangong Aochen, he directly advances to the final. Hearing this, no one present thought there was anything wrong with this. His Royal Highness, the Crown Prince Nangong Aochen, was the pride of everyone within the Qing dynasty. At such a young age, he became the #1 student in Lingyin College. His strength was extremely powerful, and his talent was outstanding. They felt he was unparalleled in this world. Because of this, there are only 20 cultivators who will participate in the battles today. In order to show fairness, 5 cultivators from Baili and Kangling College are sent to do the picking for the lottery. The winners will successfully advance to the second round. The losers will be eliminated. Jian Qingxiu's words directly introduced the rules of the tournament to everyone. His words were simple and clear. If there is no doubt, you can start the drawing process now. Jian Qingxiu's face was filled with a big smile as a lottery box appeared in front of him. Inside the box were all the students' names. The students who had been picked to do the drawing were on the high platform, and when they took out a name, that name would be plotted down. Neither Baili Hongzhuang nor Gong Shaoqing went to draw. However their opponent was, they were prepared. Nangong Xiujie and Nangong Yujin were looking at Baili Hongzhuang with shock. They had not expected that she was a member of the Kangling College team. So, with a word said by Yunjue that day fake. After all the cultivators from the Kangling College had not arrived in the Qing dynasty before 2 days prior. How could they possibly know Yunjue? Yujin, did they trick us? Nangong Xiujie's face was gloomy. He was so old, but he had never been played like this before. Because of the actions that day being too big, even their father, the emperor, had blamed them for what had happened. Since this matter affected the way their father looked at them, they could definitely not let it go. Nangong Yujin's face was also ugly. If that is the case, then Yunjue's courage is too big. They are imperial princes, but to treat them like this, was this no different than how monkeys were treated? Even if he has a certain background, he cannot be so excessive. After asking our third sister, we will know. Nangong Xiujie's eyes sparkled as he was in deep thoughts. Yunjue was not a simple character. They can't just do as they please. They had to find out the ins and outs of this matter. Nangong Yujin's eyebrows rose slightly. I'll ask her. Since the first time Nangong Yue'er saw Yunjue, she had been very concerned about him. She did everything to see him often, but even though he avoided her, she never gave up. For news about Yunjue, they believed that Nangong Yue'er would definitely know more than them. Yue'er, have you seen Gongzi recently? Nangong Yujin asked. Hearing the question, Nangong Yue'er's eyes flashed in a strange color. Third brother, why do you ask me about Gongzi? She knew about the character of her third brother. He would never ask without a reason. Chapter 713. Yunjue's wife. This third brother is just worried about your future. You are not young anymore. Father is quite upset about your marriage. Nangong Yujin's face was full of smiles. He seemed friendly and would never let her know what he was actually thinking. Hearing what he said, the eyes of Nangong Yue'er changed slightly. Third brother, can you tell me what you heard father say? Nangong Yujin shrugged. I know you like Yunjue, but what would you say if he had gotten married already? When the words came out, Nangong Yue'er immediately shook her head. That would be impossible. How can you be so sure? Nangong Yujin raised an eyebrow. Of course I am sure. Nangong Yue'er did not hesitate to answer. She got quite suspicious after hearing the words of Nangong Yujin. Normally he did not pay any attention to these things, but why would he care today? If there was an abnormality like this, something bad was likely to have happened. Nangong Yue'er did not believe that Nangong Yujin just asked for fun and immediately requested, "Third brother, what happened exactly? Tell me directly." Nangong Yujin had originally planned on testing Nangong Yue'er, but now that he saw how concerned she was, he told her the truth. "On the first tower, I saw Yunjue hold a child and look for a young and beautiful woman. He called this woman his wife. Originally, I believed in it, but today I saw her appear in the team of the Kanglan College. I felt it a bit strange, so I came to ask you. If Yunjue truly has a child, you should stay away from him. As a member of the royal family, it is impossible to look at feelings, but Nangong Yue'er was quite serious about Yunjue. Also, Nangong Yue'er is his third sister. He does not want to see her cheated." As he finished speaking, the look of Nangong Yue'er instantly became ugly. How is it possible? She had never heard about this. In the past, Yunjue was always alone. Not to mention a wife, she had never even seen a woman around Yunjue. Nangong Yue'er's mind kept swirling around it, until she suddenly remembered that Nangong Yujin said that Yunjue's wife was in the Kanglan team. She immediately asked, "Third brother, who was the woman you said was with Yunjue? What woman in this tournament could compare to her?" As to whether or not he is already married, the fact was that he treated the woman specially. She would like to see which woman would dare to grab her man. Nangong Yujin lifted his head slightly and looked in the direction of Baili Hongzhuang. "It's the woman from the Kanglan team in the white dress. Baili Hongzhuang." Hearing this, Nangong Yue'er could not help but blink. She had already noticed Baili Hongzhuang, because it was simply impossible not to pay attention to her. Even though she was unwilling, she had to admit that Baili Hongzhuang was amongst the most beautiful women in the world. She is from Kanglan College. How can she know Gongzi? Nangong Yue'er looked suspicious. There was simply no way they could have interacted. "Third brother, are you perhaps mistaken?" Chapter 714. Lottery Results. Nangong Yujin shrugged. "If your third brother can make a mistake with such a thing, then I am definitely not your third brother. This is not something only I saw. Even second brother was seeing it with his own 2 eyes." Nangong Yujin did not say much after having said this, and went straight back to where he was before. Seeing that Nangong Yujin was so serious about it, Nangong Yue'er was no longer doubtful. Next, her eyes fell on a Baili Hongzhuang again. This damn woman dared to grab her man? With her identity as a princess, how could Baili Hongzhuang as a civilian ever compare? Anyway, she had decided on Yunjue, so Yunjue could only become her man. As for any obstacles she encountered, she would eradicate them completely. Baili Hongzhuang was waiting for the result of the lottery when she suddenly felt a gaze filled with hostility focused on her. She could not help but look towards the source of the gaze, where she saw Nangong Yue'er stare at her with a malicious expression. It was as if they were enemies unable to live under the same sky. In Baili Hongzhuang's eyes was a bit of doubt. Although she and Nangong Yue'er is in different camps and were unlikely to like each other, it is strange to suddenly have such hatred for one another. Even if she offended Nangong Xiujie and Nangong Yujin, these two people had yet to act. What was the deal with this girl? After thinking about it for a bit, Baili Hongzhuang decided to directly ignore it. Since Nangong Yue'er hates her so much, naturally she will understand it at some point. Soon the results of the draw were out. Lin Yinghao slowly read what people had drawn. Xiao Lanmei fights against Nangong Yujin. Baili Hongzhuang is against Lu Jinglin. Xia Jiqing against Lu Jingqi. Soon everyone knew their opponents. The people from Kanglan College were fortunate to have not drawn anyone from their own college. However, 2 cultivators from Beihai College drew each other. However, whether or not Kanglan College was lucky was yet to be determined, because when you draw your own students, at least one from your college will advance. If they win their battles, it is naturally the best, and if they advance, then Beihai College will be worse than them. When Xia Jiqing saw that she had drawn Lu Jingqi, she was excited. This damn woman. Today, she could teach her how to behave. Lu Jingqi was also happy when she heard that her opponent was Xia Jiqing. If someone asked her who she hated the most within the Kanglin team, she would not say Baili Hongzhuang, but Xia Jiqing. Today is a chance to give Xia Jiqing a lesson. Jingqi, you have an opportunity to solve your hatred. Perform well. Lu Jinglin gently placed a hand on Lu Jingqi's shoulder. Every tournament is a good chance to show off. If you have good achievements at this tournament, it will be a great help for your future. Sister, rest assured, I will definitely get her to bed for forgiveness. Just Lu Jingqi's mood is bad when she thought about her sister. From the mentors, they understood that Baili Hongzhuang was very strong. She was afraid that her sister was not her opponent. Lu Jingqi and Lu Jinglin were thinking the same at this moment in time, and both felt very helpless about Lu Jinglin's luck. It was said that Baili Hongzhuang and Gong Shacoing are the strongest in the Kanglin College. Although her sister is not weak, the last time they fought, Baili Hongzhuang had already shown the difference between their strengths. This time, she was afraid that Lu Jinglin would lose. Sister, Lu Jingqi worried about her sister. She was clear about her sister's personality and was afraid that she was extremely depressed. Lu Jinglin waved her hand. I am afraid I will lose this game. As long as you do well, it will be enough. Hearing this, Lu Jingqi also nodded her head. Sister, don't worry. I will help you let go of your bad breath. Nangong Yue'er was unhappy that her opponent was not Baili Hongzhuang. If it was Baili Hongzhuang, she would kill her directly. This way, Imo Yunjue would still be hers. I hope that you can survive this round. Nangong Yue'er's eyes were filled with malice. There was a ray of poison deep within. Amongst all the practitioners, the fight between Shaolan Mei and Nangong Yujin was the one that they were most unhappy about at the two colleges. The strengths of both Shaolan Mei and Nangong Yujin were good, but now one of them had to be removed right away. This made the two colleges unhappy. It was a shame that only one of them would remain. When the result was over, Baili Hongzhuang went to the arena, not hesitating at all. Right now, there were 10 arenas set up on the tournament field. They had been prepared for the first 10 matches. If they had to wait for the people to fight one after another, they would waste too much time on the first round. Therefore, Lingyin College had arranged 10 arenas to shorten the time. Also, the first round was the last interesting. The further into the tournament they got, the more exciting the fights would become. Baili Hongzhuang directly jumped onto the arena that was marked for her. Her dress was fluttering in the wind. Her ink-black hair was also gently flying, and in her hand was a transparent glass sword that shone with a colorful light. It's just that although it was immensely beautiful, a cold chill made the crowd understand that they should not enjoy the scenery now. Lu Jinglin appeared on the other side of the arena. Her face was pale, and obviously she was in a bad mood. We meet again, Baili Hongzhuang said slowly. She had never thought of this result in the lottery. Lu Jinglin was only at the mysterious heaven stage. She couldn't pose a threat to her. Baili Hongzhuang, don't think that just because you're a little stronger. This time at the college tournament, you are bound to lose. Lu Jinglin taunted Baili Hongzhuang. She would not let her be proud. Baili Hongzhuang's lips curled up into a sneer as she answered. The results of the college tournament is still unknown. I only know for sure that you will be defeated by me. When the words came out, Lu Jingqi's face suddenly became gloomy. The words of Baili Hongzhuang were impossible to refute. The referee also felt the spark of dislike between the two of them, and immediately said, "Let the fight begin." Chapter 7:16. Victory. When the voice of the judge fell, the strength of Baili Hongzhuang soared into the sky, and she poured her Yuanli into her legs. Although Lu Jinglin knew that she was not the opponent of Baili Hongzhuang, she had to show her strength. In any case, she had to persist for a while. Even so, losing to a student from the Kanglin College was already a great shame to her. Baili Hongzhuang suddenly took a step forward. A violent fist burst into the air, and without hesitation, it shot towards Lu Jinglin. Lu Jinglin's figure quickly retreated. Her strength is not as good as Baili Hongzhuang's. Facing her directly would be suicide. However, Baili Hongzhuang had already known she would retreat. How could she possibly let her escape? The audience saw Baili Hongzhuang's fist fall directly onto the chest of Lu Jinglin. Direct hit. Lu Jinglin could not help but retreat several steps. Her face was pale and her eyes flashed with horror. She clearly knew that she had already dodged, but Baili Hongzhuang seemed to be able to guess her movements. The position of the fist was aimed at the place she had dodged towards. How could this be? Lu Jinglin found it hard to believe. Had Baili Hongzhuang already guessed her reaction? When she looked at Baili Hongzhuang, she saw a slight smile on her face. The blow was truly not difficult for her. If she wanted to deal with Lu Jinglin before she entered the ruins, perhaps she would have needed some thought and consideration. But now, there was simply no problem crushing her. The strength of Baili Hongzhuang was already stronger than that of Lu Jinglin. On top of this, she was not showing any mercy, so Lu Jinglin found it hard to bear. The scene back in Nangong City seemed to be replayed in Lingyin College. Lu Jinglin only felt that her internal organs had been shifted around. The pain that emerged from the body was intense. Just as she was ready to stand up, Lu Jinglin felt a burst of blood rush to her throat, making her vomit blood. The previous injury that Baili Hongzhuang had given her had not completely vanished. At this moment, with another fist attack, the situation was even worse than the first time. This is why they had done everything to not fight Baili Hongzhuang before the tournament. If they were injured by Baili Hongzhuang before the tournament began, they would be at a direct disadvantage. However, Lu Jinglin did not expect her luck to be so bad. The last thing she wanted was to face Baili Hongzhuang. She had not expected that this would happen. She wanted to continue fighting, but she could understand that with her current condition, it was simply impossible. Baili Hongzhuang won. The judge announced without hesitation. Before the battle started, she had never thought that this would be the result. Defeated in one move, just one attack. She had been looking down on the Cang College, but now she was simply defeated like this. In one move, this was truly embarrassing. The audience was also stunned. Baili Hongzhuang and Lu Jinglin are both beautiful women. There were many people who paid attention to their fight. They thought that since the Baishi College had always pressured the Cang College, the winner of this battle should be Lu Jinglin. However, no one thought that Baili Hongzhuang would win the first match so overwhelmingly. Chapter 717. Slapping faces, Baili Hongzhuang slowly and elegantly walked down the arena and back to the place allocated to the Cang College. Amongst all the ones battling, she was the one who finished the battle first. The other cultivators were still on the arenas and battling with all their might. Lu Huan and Fu Hongba saw that Baili Hongzhuang solved the battle so fast, their eyes showing some strange gazes. Although they knew it was impossible for Baili Hongzhuang to lose, it was shocking that the battle ended in only one move. Isn't it said that the cultivators of Cang College are weak? That Baili Hongzhuang used a single attack to defeat Lu Jinglin. Is this considered weak? Some of the citizens could not help but gossip after seeing this scene. All along, under the illusion that the Lingyin College had painted of Cang College, then they all thought that they were weak and powerless. They even thought that the college should be closed directly, that it was a mistake to continue existing. One attack to defeat their enemy. This proved that her strength was not just a bit stronger than Lu Jinglin. That's not necessarily so. Maybe this Lu Jinglin is simply too weak. Look at the other arenas. Who is losing that fast? You said it right. This Lu Jinglin is simply too weak. Lu Jinglin, who originally had a bad mood after losing, had an ugly face after hearing how people were talking about her. She had really become useless now. This was making her unable to accept. The proud her was filled with frustrations. At Baishi College, she was a genius, pursued by all. Now she was said to be weak. This was a fatal blow. Mo Xinghai and Duan Yingwu apparently had not expected that Lu Jinglin would lose so fast in a face-to-face contest. This was truly losing face for the Baishi College. The two were too angry to even bother about Lu Jinglin and her injuries. Even if she was going to lose, she could lose in a much better way. The way Lu Jinglin lost was like a slap to their faces. They used to mock the Kanglin College for being the weakest amongst all the colleges. Now that they failed in this way, they were angry. Baili Hongzhuang did not care about Lu Jinglin. Her eyes were observing the other platforms. Gong Xiaoqing's strength was good. At this moment, he was pressuring his opponent. She was quite certain that he would win the battle after a short amount of time. The situation of Dongfang Yu was also quite optimistic. Although the opponent was quite strong, the two of them were equal, but there was a confident smile on Dongfang Yu's lips that made her understand that he was certain of his victory. The situation of Zhang Yunfeng and Bai Junyu was not too optimistic. Zhang Yunfeng's opponent was Nangong Yue'er. Although Nangong Yue'er was a spoiled princess, her strength was not exaggerated. The tournament clearly showed that the Lingyin College had some skills. Zhang Yunfeng's strength was not weak, but Nangong Yue'er was obviously better, suppressing Zhang Yunfeng in everything she did. "Master, Zhang Yunfeng is going to lose," Little Black slowly said. "Nangong Yue'er is not showing all her strength." From beginning to end, Nangong Yue'er never regarded Zhang Yunfeng as a real opponent. She never did her best in attacking. Chapter 7:18. Nangong Yue'er provokes Baili. Hongzhuang nodded slightly. The judgment of Little Black and Little White was not wrong. Nangong Yue'er had broken through to the innate realm. Sure enough, the royal family's members were not simple. In fact, no matter what rich resources the royal family owned, it would be hard to not have a good cultivation. In comparison, it was obvious that Nangong Yujin was the worst from the royal family in the tournament. His sister had already broken through into the innate realm, but he had not. It was obvious that this young man only cared about women. Since that day, she had gotten a better understanding of Nangong Yujin. The third prince of the Qing dynasty was famous for his lust. Not only was he often visiting the brothels, if he found a beautiful woman on the streets, he would take her home directly. For this reason, the reputation of Nangong Yujin was quite bad in the Qing dynasty. It was only because of his identity as the third prince that no one dared say anything. The second prince, Nangong Xiujie, was somewhat better, but not by much. On the other hand, the crown prince Nangong Aochen was very loved by the people. Not only was he immensely strong, he had never done anything wrong. Bang! With a heavy blow by Nangong Yue'er, Zhang Yunfeng was hit and fell directly from the platform, causing the battle to end. After winning, Nangong Yue'er looked directly at Baili Hongzhuang, her chin held high and her pretty face filled with provocation. "Master, this Nangong Yue'er seems to really hate you." Little Black's eyes were doubtful. Nangong Yue'er's attitude was obviously filled with provocation, but when did their owner offend her? Baili Hongzhuang just shrugged, her expression innocent. She had no understanding as to why Nangong Yue'er had this attitude toward her. In the end, Baili Hongzhuang's eyes landed on the arena where Xia Jiqing was fighting. Xia Jiqing and Lu Jingqi could be considered equal. Everything seemed even so far. None of them were retreating, and they kept attacking the other's vital points. The hatred between the two was deep, and now they finally got a chance to let it out. Bang! Xia Jiqing's hands used the long red whip she could not afford in the Wubao Pavilion. After seeing that Xia Jiqing liked it, Baili Hongzhuang bought the long whip and made Xia Jiqing use it in the tournament. Lu Jingqi was using a long sword and was also rushing to attack Xia Jiqing. It was just that whenever she attacked, Xia Jiqing could use the long whip to entangle her sword. Upon seeing this, Lu Jingqi did not panic. Yuanli continued to enter the long sword's range and slowly managed to unravel the long whip's entrapment. They were constantly fighting, but no one knew who will win. Just as Baili Hongzhuang was focusing on the battle between Lu Jingqi and Xia Jiqing, Gong Xiaoqing and Dongfang Yu walked up to her side, as they had finished and won their battles. "Hongzhuang, you were so fast at finishing the battle." Dongfang Yu's face was filled with emotion. He had seen her finish the battle before his had even begun. Chapter 7:19. Time to end this battle, Baili Hongzhuang just smiled lightly. But without waiting for her to say anything, Lu Huayan's voice that was filled with laughter already rang. Baili Hongzhuang defeated Lu Jinglin with one stroke. It gave us a good head start. Lu Huayan and Fu Hongbao's mood was quite good. Now that Baili Hongzhuang, Gong Shaoqing, and Dongfang Yu had won. This score was not considered bad at all. It was still uncertain who amongst Xia Jiqing and Lu Jingqi would win, but if Xia Jiqing won, then they had managed to advance 4 people. Compared to the last 2 times the tournament had been held, this was a much better result. Zhang Yinfeng, Bai Junyu, and Cui Haoyin were filled with a feeling of defeat. They had lost and could not pass the first round in the tournament. Mentors, I am sorry. The mood of these 3 were immensely bad. They knew they needed good results in the tournament, but they were unable to even get through the first round. They felt uncomfortable at heart. Lu Huayan and Fu Hongbao flashed a kindness in their eyes and patted the shoulders of the students. There will always be loss in a tournament. There is no need to think too much about it. The cultivators of Lingyin and Beihai College were strong. The reason Zhang Yinfeng and the others failed was not because of they not being strong enough, but because their opponents were simply just too powerful. Zhang Yinfeng was injured. After Fu Hongbao took out the previously prepared healing medicine and gave it to Zhang Yinfeng, everyone turned their eyes to the battle between Xia Jiqing and Lu Jingqi. Not only the students of Kangling College, also the students of Beihai College were worried about this battle. Both colleges had 3 people who advanced into the next round. The winner of this battle would determine who had the upper hand. The strength of this Lu Jingqi seems a bit stronger than it was at Longguang City. Gong Shaoqing judged this after seeing the current battle of Lu Jingqi and Xia Jiqing. Although Lu Jingqi and Xia Jiqing were at the same cultivation stage, Xia Jiqing should be slightly higher. But it was impossible to say who would win. It was impossible for Lu Jingqi to hide her strength. I hope that Jiqing can win. Zhang Yunfeng's eyes were filled with hope. She had lost in the first round of the tournament, but now she only hoped that Xia Jiqing could win. In this way, then even if she had lost in the first round, if they could have 4 places, they would hold the upper hand against the Beihai College. Xia Jiqing, you were so arrogant normally. Now you aren't so strong. Lu Jingqi sneered. Her eyes were filled with ridicule. Xia Jiqing sneered and looked coldly at Xia Jiqing. Lu Jingqi, this trash talking is useless. I have not seen you having the strength to defeating me yet. Seeing that Xia Jiqing had directly guessed her thoughts, Lu Jingqi's face was ugly. She had thought of taking this opportunity to teach Xia Jiqing a lesson, but she never thought that her strength was comparable to her own. She had not succeeded so far. The power within their bodies had already been consumed by more than half. It would not work to continue this way. However, the next moment, Xia Jiqing slowly said, "Now it's time to end this battle." Chapter 720. Martial art skill of the middle mysterious rank. Listening to Xia Jiqing, Lu Jingqi was taken by surprise before a sneer appeared on the corner of her lips. Xia Jiqing, who do you think you are? It is not that easy to defeat me. Lu Jingqi thought that Xia Jiqing was just bragging. They had not been able to determine the winner so far, but Xia Jiqing had to say that. The battle is not over yet. Wasn't she just being stupid? Then they saw that Xia Jiqing's power was surging, and there was a fierce light in her eyes. Fire dancing whip. When the voice of Xia Jiqing fell, under the horrified eyes of the audience, the red whip in Xia Jiqing's hand suddenly burst into a large flame, like a fire snake, flexible and fiercely attacking Lu Jingqi. This flame was not fake, it really existed, because everyone clearly felt how the temperature in the surrounding area suddenly increased when the flame appeared. The feeling of Lu Jingqi, who was opposite Xia Jiqing, was the clearest. Sweat was oozing out from her forehead, her eyes also betraying her emotions, showing how nervous she was. She did not think that Xia Jiqing would have such a strong move. It was clearly out of the scope of yellow rank martial arts. It was at least mysterious. As for what level of the mysterious martial arts it was, she did not know. That was not the most important thing either. The most important thing was that she did not have such strong martial arts skills. When the strength of the two of them was equal, what mattered was martial arts skills. Since she has no martial arts skill that can compete against it, she was doomed to lose this match. The students of Lingyin College also had changed their expressions at this moment. They had been mocking the students of Cang College, calling them weak, but now it seemed they might even be stronger than Baishi College. This is at least the middle-ranked, mysterious martial arts. Xia Jiqing is merely a mysterious heaven-ranked cultivator, but she already has a middle-ranked, mysterious martial arts. I am afraid that Lu Jingqi can only lose now. In my opinion, this college is not weak. How come it could be like this in the rumors? There were a lot smarter people at the scene, and they could understand what was going on. Although the last two college tournaments last 2 times have been bad for Cang College, the performance this time was quite outstanding. The students of Baishi College had ugly expressions. They had originally planned on finishing off the students from Cang College. The best would have been to ensure that none of them would make it to the second round of the tournament. However, they never expected that the situation was like this. Their performance was even better than their own. Mo Xinghai and Duan Yingwu looked at each other, their faces ugly. They did not expect that the students of Cang College were so good. The last 2 times they were not this good. Huan Chiyou's face held a faint and satisfied smile. He was indeed satisfied with the performance of Baili, Hongzhuang, and the others. While I had not expected the students of Cang College to be crouching tigers and hidden dragons, Jian Xingqiu's face was filled with smiles. These good students, I have not even heard about them before. Huan Chuyou smiled. Their performance is also out of my expectations. Jian Xingqiu looked at Huan Chuyou and noticed that he was confident as he himself. His mood turned worse. What he wanted was to destroy them completely and prove to everyone that the decision he had made was correct. The constant stubbornness of the Cang College would lead them to demise. However, now the performance of the Cang College had already been out of his expectations. It is no wonder that their principal so easily agreed to hold the college tournament in advance. They had already prepared for it. The vice president of Baishi College, Hongxi, sat next to Lin Yinghao, and his expression was the ugliest amongst all the principals and vice principals that were present. He also had complete confidence in this college tournament, but he had not expected that he would already be feeling threatened before the first round even ended. Lingyin College was first place. No one could doubt this, but if Cang College overtook their college, that'd be the biggest shame. Vice President Song, the strength of the students of your college which have been defeated seems a bit bad, Huan Chuyou said with a casual voice. The feeling of finally being able to mock him was great, and Song Hongxi's face turned gloomy. Huan Chuyou did not like Song Hongxi. He might be the vice principal of Baishi College, but now that they were a dog to the Lingyin College, all the power was in Lingyin College's hands. As a cultivator, integrity was the most important, but what had happened to Song Hongxi and the entire Baishi College? How many students can be led by this vice president? Song Hongxi looked at him with a sullen look. Lu Jinglin's performance today is poor because she was injured on the way to the Lingyin College. She is still not fully recovered. Song Haoshi would never let Huan Chuyou give him a tag of having weak people in his college, and immediately found a suitable excuse. Lingyin's Lin Yinghao instantly pretended to be surprised. I see. No wonder this was the result. Since the tournament was about to begin, but she still managed to become injured. She sure is very careless. Huan Chuyou shook his head. The sarcasm in his words was obvious. Over the years, Baishi College has often ridiculed Cang College since they had the backing of Lingyin College. Every year they would make them lose students. The teachers of Baishi College would go to the countries close to Cang College and poach the talented geniuses. This had always made Huan Chuyou and Roun Tianxiong feel disgusted. It was obvious that the Baishi College had done a lot of small tricks throughout the years. Initially, Huan Chuyou and Roun Tianxiong had no intention of acting on it, but now that things had reached this point, they had completely torn their faces with one another. He did not mind taunting them a bit. After all, You can't always suffer this kind of disgusting behavior. Might at least let Hongxi understand what he was up against. Hongxi had never expected that Chuyou would change his attitude so much. Even so, he could say nothing in return. Can you possibly say that Lu Jinglin was injured by Baili Hongzhuang previously? Doesn't that just mean that she was useless? Therefore, Hongxi can only swallow the bad breath. In fact, Lu Jinglin's show today was truly too unsatisfactory. Bang! A loud noise came crashing down as the hot temperature spread, and out of the flames fell Lu Jingqi's body. It fell heavily to the ground. Seeing this unexpected scene, the audience could not help but burst into discussion. Although they knew the power of the martial art that Xia Jiqing was using was outstanding, they had never expected it to be this shocking. In a battle where Xia Jiqing and Lu Jingqi were completely equal, it was shocking that Lu Jingqi had no resistance at all. She was directly blown up. There was a big smile on Dongfang Yu's face. Is Xia Jiqing showing off the inheritance she got in the ruins? Before this, they had heard that Xia Ziwing had been taught a whip skill in the ruins. Now, looking at the power of the move, it was truly powerful. Baili Hongzhuang nodded slightly. It should be. During the time, since the ruins, they had already mastered the inheritance from the ruins. From this, she can see that Xia Jiqing had full control over the martial arts. However, the amount of energy needed for this mysterious martial art was a lot, and it was difficult to display it with the cultivation base of Xia Jiqing. After all, the higher rank of martial arts was, the more power was needed in order to display it. If they were not strong enough, and they still forcefully tried using the skill, it might even harm themselves. If she guessed correctly, then this should be a mysterious middle-ranked martial art skill. However, it should be much stronger than others of the same rank. In fact, if the martial art was higher ranked than that, then it would not be Lu Jingqi that was lying on the ground right now, but Xia Jiqing. Lu Jingqi had directly fainted, but Xia Jiqing was not much better off. Obviously, this attack had exhausted all her strength. Xia Jiqing wins. When the voice of the judge fell, Xia Jiqing revealed a brilliant smile. She finally won. Baili Hongzhuang did not hesitate to rush to her side and placed a pill into her mouth. She had used far too much energy in this battle, and there was still the second round coming up. She needed to restore her Yuanli as soon as possible. Hongzhuang, I won. Xia Jiqing was too excited as she waved her hands. This victory was important to her. Baili Hongzhuang smiled and gave a thumbs up. You are great. Because of you, we have overtaken Beihai College. Dongfang Yu and the others were also happy. After seeing Xia Jiqing, they also raised their thumbs. Jiqing, you are so powerful. Beautiful victory. The hearts of the people from the Kangling College were happy. In the first round, they had 4 people advancing. Lingyin College had 3 people who advanced, not counting Nangong Aochen, who directly entered the final. Kangling College also had 4 people, while Beihai only had 3. Soon the judges handed over the results of who had progressed to the second round to Jian Qingxiu. He then threw a glance at the final result and stood up to announce the names. In the first round, those who qualified for the second round from Lingyin College are Nangong Xiujie, Gangong Yue'er, and Jin Xingyu. The ones from Beihai College who won the first round are Shaolan Mei, Shui Haoling, and Nan Yangzi. Kangling College's winning students are Baili Hongzhuang, Gong Shaoqing, Dongfang Yu, and Xia Jiqing. With the announcements of the results, the cultivators from the schools cheered. No matter what, at least they managed to enter the second round and got some of the limelight. I did not expect Kangling College to be this strong. They had 4 people who advanced to the second round. It seems that our previous thoughts were all wrong. Damn, I bet on Beihai College winning, but now they already lost in the first round. They are normally so arrogant. This is really shameful. If I knew, I'd have bet on Kangling College. Currently, they have the best odds. Someone had already started a betting pool before the start of the tournament. Because everyone knew that Lingyin College were going to be the winners, the gambles were all between Beihai and Kangling College. From the odds, everyone understood that Kanglin College had no chance to win. So most chose Beihai College. Only a few would bet on Kanglin College. At this moment, seeing that Beihai College was suppressed, their hearts were depressed. Now it was impossible to change their bets, but if they could, they would have bet on Kanglin College. For this reason, Beihai College had become the subject of everyone's ire. The faces of Lu Jinglin and the others had long since turned ugly. They were filled with confidence. They did not expect that only 3 would advance to the second round. They had the fewest cultivators in the tournament now. Their chances of winning were the smallest. Mo Xinghai and Duan Yingwu's faces were ugly to the extreme. They used to be so arrogant in front of Lu Huayan, but now they dared not even look at him. It was simply too shameful. The show you displayed today is simply too bad. Mo Xinghai looked at the students behind him with annoyance. He had hoped that they would show off their might and stun everyone at this tournament, but they did the opposite. Lu Jinglin lowered her head. She was without a doubt the worst performer of them all. She felt that the eyes that the mentor used to look at her with would chop her into pieces. On the side, Lu Jingqi was still unconscious. Even though she had been given medicine, it would take some time for her to wake up again. The strength of Xia Jiqing's move was simply just too strong. EU mentors, in round 2 we will do our very best, Haoling said as he clenched his fist. The humiliation he was receiving right now, he would definitely give it back to the Kanglin cultivators in the next round. Lu Jinglin looked gratefully at Haoling. His words had freed her from the previous predicament. Initially, she did not like Haoling very much. She always just let him pursue her with no intention of responding. But now she felt that he was more manly than before. Mentors, the current result does not represent the final result. Xia Jiqing has now used all her energy. She cannot perform well in the next round. Nanyangza slowly said. Seeing the expressions of Haoling and Nanyangza, both Mo Xinghai and Duan Yingwu's faces turned much better. This was something they also knew. Although the first round of competition was over with the Kanglin College having more places than them, the second round would begin soon. There was no time to rest in the middle. With the current situation of Xia Jiqing, it was impossible to recover before the beginning of the next round. As a result, she was definitely going to be eliminated. In the next round, no mistakes are allowed. Duan Yingwu's stance was tough. The strength these students displayed represented the strength of the mentors. If the students did badly, it would say that they were bad mentors. Yes, Haoling and Nanyangza nodded their heads. They would do their best in the next battle. Compared to Haoling and Nanyangza's loud agreements, Xiaolanmei never said anything and was as casual as always. Mo Xinghai and Duan Yingwu were both familiar with the character of Xiaolanmei. He was their trump card. Even the third prince lost in his hands, so it showed that he was not weak. He would definitely walk all the way to the final. Now everyone has an hour to rest. I hope you can adjust your state as soon as possible and do your best in the next round. Jian Qingqiu announced an hour break, and everyone started resting. There's only an hour. It will be very difficult for me to recover. Xia Jiqing's eyebrows wrinkled slightly. Her previous use of a dancing fire whip had drained her body completely of Yuanli. Even though she had taken some medication, it was not enough to restore her in a short time. It was like a person who was hungry and hasn't eaten for a few days. Suddenly she had food, but because of being too weak, it was impossible to restore one's strength immediately. She could never recover in 1 hour. 1 hour is indeed too little. Dongfang Yu frowned. Fortunately, they had not been injured. Otherwise, they would have to completely miss the second round. This is simply too unreasonable. Zhang Yunfeng's face was filled with disgust. Their advantage in the first round had completely vanished like this. This rule is somewhat unreasonable, but becomes reasonable when it is the same for everyone. Baili Hongzhuang was indifferent. This kind of rule was not directed at them, but at everyone, so they could not complain about it. They could only accept it. When hearing her words, their expressions changed slightly. They were very unhappy, but they understood that Baili Hongzhuang was reasonable. If the other two colleges did not complain, but they did, everyone would have a bad impression of them. Xia Jiqing's face showed a bit of helplessness. If she had known this would be the result, she would not have used the dancing flame whip. It's just that Lu Jingqi was stronger than she had expected. She had no other option than to win this way. Xia Jiqing was depressed. From the beginning, she already knew that with her own strength, it was impossible to enter the finals. When thinking about it, she could not help but be grateful that her first opponent was Lu Jingqi. If she could not deal with Lu Jingqi before the second round, then the second round, she would be able to help her teammates cause problems. They were there as a team, and all she wished for was to see her team go further. However, she was too weak, wasting an excellent opportunity. Baili Hongzhuang patted Xia Jiqing's shoulder. "You already did great, don't overthink." Xia Jiqing nodded and smiled, but within her smile was some disappointment. "Jiqing, I will help you with acupuncture. Maybe it can help you increase your restoration rate." Baili Hongzhuang said slowly. By using acupuncture, she was able to stimulate the meridians and cells in the body, allowing for the body to absorb the qi with the fastest speed. As a result, it could perhaps help Xia Jiqing recover. Hearing this, Xia Jiqing could not help but ask, "Can it really work?" Baili Hongzhuang nodded slightly while smiling. "I said so naturally it will work. Don't forget who I am." Xia Jiqing's eyes shone brightly. Baili Hongzhuang was a famous medicinal doctor. "Hongzhuang, you are the hope of our college, the one we hope will enter the finals. Applying acupuncture will consume your mental energy. Are you sure about this?" Zhang Yinfeng was worried. She naturally hoped that they could restore Xia Jiqing's strength, but if it affected Baili Hongzhuang, then it was not a good thing. Xia Jiqing also quickly agreed. "Yinfeng is correct. Hongzhuang, you shouldn't help me. You are the most important." It was already a shame that she had failed, but if she dragged down Baili Hongzhuang, then she would become the center of the academy. Baili Hongzhuang waved her hand dismissively. "Don't worry. It is just stimulating the meridians, not removing poison or healing someone. It is not complicated and won't require much energy." "Hongzhuang, are you sure?" Xia Hongzhuang asked uncertainly. Baili Hongzhuang nodded and smiled. "Of course it's true. Why would I lie to you?" Xia Jiqing couldn't help but look at Zhang Yinfeng to hear her opinion, but she also nodded her head. "Since Hongzhuang says it's nothing, then let us try it." Next, Baili Hongzhuang directly took out her silver needles, and her energy surged as she placed the silver needles into the acupoints of Xia Jiqing. This was the first time that Xia Jiqing was experiencing acupuncture. She had thought that it would be painful to have such long needles placed in her body, but after Baili Hongzhuang placed the first needle, she did not feel the slightest pain. Instead, she felt a sense of soreness where the needle was placed, but it was very comfortable. Baili Hongzhuang directly took out a white porcelain bottle and gave it to Xia Jiqing. She said, "There are some returning qi pills here. You should swallow 2 now." If they relied on Xia Jiqing's own ability to restore the strength within this 1 hour, it'd be impossible. As such, it was definitely important to use these returning qi pills. Xia Jiqing looked at the bottle of pills in her hands, and her heart was bursting with emotions. Even knowing that Baili Hongzhuang was an alchemist, she couldn't help but marvel over her actions. This was completely like eating pills as if they were candy. Baili Hongzhuang did not intend to make a big deal out of it, even though she was more wasteful than even a princess could be. In fact, after seeing Baili Hongzhuang act like this, even Nangong Yue'er's eyes turned strange. A whole bottle of returning qi pills she would naturally have no problem getting, but giving them to others, that was simply too wasteful. "Lu Jinglin, do you know what this Baili Hongzhuang is doing?" Lu Jingqi had already fainted, so Nangong Yue'er's eyes fell onto Lu Jinglin's body. In her opinion, the two sisters ought to be similar. Lu Jinglin shook her head slightly. "She is just showing off and acting. This Baili Hongzhuang likes to be the focus of everyone's attention. Hearing this, Nangong Yue'er's eyes were getting filled with disgust. There was originally a bad impression of Baili Hongzhuang, but now she was even more disgusted. Hey, Baili Hongzhuang, you shouldn't be trying to help Xia Jiqing restore her power? Haoling looked at Baili Hongzhuang with a gaze filled with taunt. Everyone knew that Xia Jiqing had spent all her energy on stage, and it was impossible to restore it in such a short amount of time. Although the rest time was short, and they were supposed to spend the time restoring their own energy, Baili Hongzhuang spent her time on restoring Xia Jiqing's. Was this not the same as looking for a slap in the face? Baili Hongzhuang looked at Haoling and said lazily, "Well done, you guessed it correctly." Seeing that Baili Hongzhuang directly confirmed what he had been guessing, he was stunned, but then he laughed. You really like to pretend that you are generous and unselfish. You let your friends pick an inscription in Wu Bao Pavilion. Now you are spending your energy to save a useless teammate. If all of you cultivators from Kangling College are like this, filled with benevolence, I think you should just give up right away. Haoling was quite uncomfortable whenever he thought about Baili Hongzhuang. It was the most important to restore one's own strength to peak condition. This move of Baili Hongzhuang was stupid. Not only was she weakening herself, she would not be able to help Xia Jiqing. Even so, Baili Hongzhuang was too lazy to pay attention to Haoling. This guy was simply too selfish and was unaware of what exactly teamwork meant. Right now they were fighting for their college, but they were not relying only on their own strength. If everyone else failed in the first round, what use was it if one person advanced to the second round? Haoling, I think that you and the Liu family are very suitable. Xia Jiqing's eyes flashed with anger and dissatisfaction. You are pursuing this Liu Jinglin, and your character is just as bad as the Liu family. You sure you are not one of their sisters? Not to mention these, anyone who dared to mock her and her friends, Xia Jiqing, would counterattack first. Liu Jinglin and her sister were too much. Now Liu Jingqi had been defeated by her. She thought that there was finally some silence. Yet as soon as this happened, Haoling appeared. Was this not too much? Listening to her words, Haoling's face was ugly. What was the worst way to curse men? That was simply to say that they were not a man. And just now, Xia Jiqing had just said it. It was truly unbearable. Xia Jiqing, you are just a waste of a teammate. What is so good about having a sharp mouth? Haoling said coldly. Xia Jiqing turned her head casually. At least I could defeat Liu Jingqi. With such a simple sentence, Xia Jiqing won the victory and slapped him in the face. A loser is a loser. At least she successfully advanced to the second round. This proved that she was indeed stronger than Liu Jingqi, who lost at her hand. Liu Jinglin was annoyed, but Liu Jingqi had already fainted. Even after taking the pills, she was still not waking up. Now that Xia Jiqing said such things about Liu Jingqi, it was really hateful. Kangling College has lost twice in a row. This time there will be no difference. We will take it. Nangong Shojia's eyes fell onto the body of Baili Hongzhuang. The original admiration he held for Baili Hongzhuang at the beginning was now completely gone. This woman is definitely not a simple character. Not just thinking about her and Mo Yunjue's relationship, thinking about Liu Jinglin's defeat. According to the information they had learned, this Baili Hongzhuang was also a cultivator who had broken through into the innate realm. When looking at her identity, she was simply an ordinary person. But no ordinary person could break into the innate realm at such a young age. This was clearly a genius. Even if he was at the age of Baili Hongzhuang, he would not be able to break into the innate realm, but this woman had done so. Seeing that Nangong Shujia took the initiative to find trouble, Baili Hongzhuang did not stop and continued to help Xia Jiqing with acupuncture. While she sneered, it seems that the behavior of the royal family is to bully others. This temperament has not changed. When the words came out, Nangong Shojia's face was ugly. He thought that Baili Hongzhuang would have some respect for a prince, that she would not say such things here. He did not understand that Baili Hongzhuang was different. Not only was she not scared, she even said such things in public. A slightly different kind of gaze fell onto Nangong Shujia. They all had a certain understanding of the second prince's behavior when it came to women. When looking at how Baili Hongzhuang and Nangong Shujia were against one another, could they have something going on between them? When thinking about how beautiful Baili Hongzhuang was, then they understood faintly what had happened. Otherwise, with the character of Nangong Shujia, if it wasn't because of a previous conflict, why would he come and find problems with Baili Hongzhuang? Baili Hongzhuang, you better pray that you will not meet me in the next round. Otherwise, you will die a very ugly death. Nangong Shujia's words flashed with a cold light, and his words were full of threats. He had no interest in a woman who was already married. Not to mention, this Baili Hongzhuang had provoked his anger. He had to teach her a lesson. You better pray not to meet me. The face of Baili Hongzhuang was so cold, her eyes freezing. She had a bad impression of Nangong Shujia. In a direct confrontation, she had never been afraid. Originally, she was too lazy to pay attention to these provocations, but since they came to Lingyin College, these provocations and all the sarcasm of these people had never stopped. It was as if they thought she was afraid of them. This time, she showed her strength. No matter how powerful her opponent was, she would go all the way. When her words fell, the practitioners present were all stunned. This attitude was completely different from the previous Baili Hongzhuang. Had the pressure gone to her head? Nangong Shujia only thought that it was fun, that Baili Hongzhuang felt herself to be an important person. It was a simple thing to deal with someone weaker than themselves. A simple attack would solve it. Thinking like this, Baili Hongzhuang was indeed a bit arrogant. However, although she had a bit of strength, should she be so full of it? Instead of taking it seriously, Nangong Shujia was too lazy to pay attention to it. If he truly began arguing with them, then he would lose out. Haoling was the perfect example of that. Baili Hongzhuang was seated on the ground and made Xia Jiqing continue to swallow one returning qi pill after another. In the process, Xia Jiqing was stunned to find that the tiredness in her body slowly vanished and that every cell in her body was greedily absorbing the energy contained in the pills. Xia Jiqing's face was getting brighter, and she admired Baili Hongzhuang more than before. She was simply a god. After Baili Hongzhuang took back the silver needles, Zhang Yinfeng and the others came over and asked, Jiqing, how are you feeling? I recovered. The feeling of exhaustion is completely gone. Xia Jiqing had a hard time hiding her excitement on her pretty face. Her whole body was alive and kicking, and her current actions were just proving her physical condition. Understanding the situation, Zhang Yinfeng and the others all smiled happily. They did not expect that in less than half an hour, Xia Jiqing would be able to return to such a level. It was a good thing for the next round. On the other hand, the cultivators of Baishi and Lingyin colleges were stunned at Xia Jiqing's expressions. Clearly, she was not pretending. They also didn't see any signs of tiredness. After real tiredness, the body would fall into exhaustion and it would be hard to move. The situation of Xia Jiqing deviated from what they could understand. It was simply impossible to imagine that Xia Jiqing could be restored to her peak condition in such a short amount of time. How is this possible? Lu Jinglin exclaimed. All of them agreed that it was impossible for Xia Jiqing to restore her energy, but the situation in front of them made it impossible to refute. Haoling's expression was very ugly. He had just finished laughing at Baili Hongzhuang and said that what she was doing was useless. But when they looked at the current situation, wasn't Baili Hongzhuang impossible to defeat? She was helping the college recover their fighting power. How did Baili Hongzhuang do it? Haoling looked as if he had seen a ghost. He knew that there was no way to restore energy apart from time. But now this scene had happened in front of them. They still could not understand what Baili Hongzhuang had done. Xiaolanmei's gaze fell onto the body of Baili Hongzhuang. This woman was extraordinary from the first moment they had met. With today's display, he felt that she was getting more and more complex, and that silver needle, it seemed very similar to the method that the doctors used to use. Nangong Xiujie and Nangong Yujin looked at each other. What an amazing method. If they could master this method, then their situation would be much better. The eyes of the cultivators within the crowd also locked onto Baili Hongzhuang. They quite liked this girl. Even if she was a student of Canglin College, she was able to defeat her opponent in a single blow and successfully display her strength. The girl from Canglin College is very good. How is she even capable of restoring the other's strength? I don't know, this is simply unheard of, but it is really amazing. I think the school is awesome. She might be a true black horse. Even so, Lingyin College was still the strongest, and Baili Hongzhuang offended the second prince. She won't have a good end. As soon as the students of Lingyin College heard the remarks of the crowd, they instantly began rebutting their words. In their hearts, no one was allowed to make problems for their royal family. Baili Hongzhuang had dared to not put the royal family in her eyes. This was the same as looking for death. Above the stage, on the high platform, Jianqingqiu looked at Baili Hongzhuang with a strange expression. This had not progressed as he expected. Old friend, what Baili Hongzhuang used. It could not have been acupuncture. Jianqingqiu was the principal of Lingyin College, and he had seen many things. Although the acupuncture techniques had been lost for many years, this method was very sought after by the doctors, so he still remembered it. Acupuncture has long since been lost. How could it possibly appear in the hands of a little girl? Without waiting for an answer, Hongxi had already taken the lead to answer. His face was filled with disdain. What a joke! The technique of acupuncture was a method that many famous doctors had never mastered, and it was long since lost in the passing of time. Baili Hongzhuang was just a cultivator, not even a professional doctor. How could she possibly master such a method? Hearing that, Jianqingqiu's eyes changed a few times. Was he really just thinking too much? Although he also thought about it being ridiculous, he could not help but think so, because it truly looked like the lost technique of acupuncture. In the next moment, Jianqingqiu and Hongxi looked horrified as Huan Chuyou slowly nodded his head. Yes, this is the technique of acupuncture. The principal has a good eyesight. When the voice of Huan Chuyou fell, Jianqingqiu and Hongxi's hearts were filled with unspeakable shock. The Canglin College was too dazzling this time. The strength of the students was much stronger than before. In this team, Baili Hongzhuang and Xia Jiqing were first-year students. When they knew about this fact, they thought that the Canglin College was not as good as the previous years, that the talents were slowly dwindling. Even the first-grade students were sent to the tournament. But when they looked at the situation in front of them, then Baili Hongzhuang and Xia Jiqing had both advanced to the second round of the tournament. This proved that the strength of the first-grade students was way stronger than they had expected. Hey, old friend, are you joking? Hongxi smiled, a little embarrassed. Baili Hongzhuang is a cultivator. How could she master the lost technique of acupuncture? Looking at the suspicion of Hongxi, Huan Chuyou was also proud in his heart. Over the years, Hongxi had been ridiculing them and their students. Now he could finally let Hongxi look like this. You don't know about this, but Baili Hongzhuang is not only a cultivator, she is also a real doctor. If you're feeling uncomfortable, she can definitely cure you. Since you're the vice principal, then Baili Hongzhuang would even give you a discount. Huan Chuyou smiled brightly. Baili Hongzhuang was truly the pride of their school. Even if he was the vice principal, he was still amazed whenever he thought about the achievements of Baili Hongzhuang. She had so much strength at such a young age. Her future was limitless. Jianqingqiu and Hongxi looked at one another. Although the smile of Huan Chuyou was ugly in their eyes, they were still too shocked to really care. The Canglin College is really amazing. The students are skilled. Jianqingqiu smiled a little, but his heart still held some disdain. This kind of thing seemed very prestigious, but as a principal he was clear that it was bad for the cultivator. Cultivation was a matter of time and effort. If you want to take time off to do other things, then you would lose time on cultivation. At the beginning the gap might not seem big, But as it grew, the gap would be bigger and bigger. It was not a good thing. Huan Chuyou could hear the words of Jiang Qingxiu and understood what he said. In fact, he had previously agreed with him. However, after seeing the progress of Baili Hongzhuang, he felt that it was truly wrong. In this world, there were some geniuses which could not be counted with common sense. After Xia Jiqing had recovered, Baili Hongzhuang and the others gathered together. The second round of the tournament was also very crucial. They had to be prepared. When I first fought against Haoling, I was completely defeated by his inscription. Ciu Haoyin's face was filled with unwillingness. His strength was not weaker than Haoling, but the inscription H had was very powerful. Because of this disadvantage, he was defeated by Haoling. If it was a loss because of his strength not being strong enough, then he had nothing to say, but he lost because of outside factors, which made him unsatisfied. Inscription. Gong Shaoqing's brows furrowed slightly. It seems that Haoling bought an inscription at Wubao Pavilion. His weapon was also inscribed with an inscription, but he had not used it in the first round. As Shaoqing said, it makes sense. Haoling has always been rich. It is not a surprise if he bought an inscription at Wubao Pavilion. Dongfang Yu snot slightly. What effect does Haoling's inscription have? It is a flaming effect, and it is very lethal. If you're accidentally burned, you need to be extra careful. Hearing this, Xia Jiqing could not help but frown. There was no inscription at the Wubao Pavilion like that with flaming attributes. The dancing flame whip she had inherited in the ruins was a fire attribute, so she was quite concerned about the inscriptions of the flame attribute, just like her character, which was very fiery. On the day of the Wubao Pavilion, she looked for an inscription that had fire attribute for a long time, but in the end she could only give up. She had not expected that Haoling could find a fire attribute inscription at Wubao Pavilion. Maybe they added it later. Zhang Yinfeng frowned. It was not impossible. Just as Zhang Yinfeng and the others were discussing, Haoling was also showing off his inscription at the practitioners at Beihai College. I did not expect the power of my inscription to be this fierce. Haoling looked smug. He had only thought of using the inscription last night, and he thought the effect was quite good, but he had not expected it to be this good. When Haoling's voice fell, all the eyes of the Beihai College students landed on his body. Previously, they just cared about their own battles. As such, they did not notice what the situation of Haoling's battle was. When they heard his words, they were surprised and unaware of when he had managed to get his hands on an inscription. Haoling, where did you get this inscription from? Lu Jinglin's face was showing some curiosity. They knew for a fact that it was not from Wubao Pavilion. Although they went to Wubao Pavilion the next day, the price of the inscription was simply too high. They understood that although the Wubao Pavilion sold inscriptions, it was mainly for the sake of reputation. Selling an inscription was just a bonus. If Haoling had not lost his Chinquan bag, he would have been able to afford one, but his Chinquan bag was lost, so he was powerless. Looking at the curious expressions, Haoling smiled proudly. Previously, the elders of my family took it back to me after attending an auction. I did not expect it to be this easy to use. Then was it not very expensive? The price of an inscription at an auction ought to be very high. Haoling waved his hand dismissively. Not expensive at all. My elder bought 3 copies and gave me one, while the other 2 were given to my brothers. Although Haoling said that it was not expensive, everyone knew the truth in their hearts. Who did not know that Haoling was super rich? Even if he said it was not expensive, it would be expensive for most people. Inscriptions have always been precious, and especially inscriptions like Haoling's that were so good, the price would be extreme. Haoling smiled as he felt the envy of Lu Jinglin and the others. Truth was that this inscription was truly not very expensive. The elder had not cared about it when he bought it, and gave it to him casually. He had originally wanted to buy an inscription at Wubao Pavilion, but the price was simply so high he had to give up. The previous night, he was thinking about the fact that he would be participating in the tournament next, and even if the use of the inscription was nothing special, it might be able to help him a bit. However, after using it today, he found that it was not just a little help, it was a huge increase in power. Xiao Lamei's eyes fell onto the red inscription on Shui Haoling's weapon. He noticed the effect of the inscription and had to admit that it was powerful. The inscription masters were truly great. They were able to change something so easily. If the difference in strength between the two parties was not too big, then the inscription would directly determine the final outcome. That Shui Haoling is showing off. Cui Haoyan was filled with dissatisfaction. The most annoying guy was showing off again. Shui Haoling also noticed that Cui Haoyan was glaring angrily at him and provocatively lifted his weapon in his hand, saying with an extremely proud voice, "Idiot, you must blame yourself for not buying an inscription. If you can't afford it, then so be it." Shui Haoling felt no shame with winning by relying on inscriptions. After all, one's finances was also part of their strength. Every genius was produced under the constant use of resources. A poor man could not even afford a weapon, so how could they possibly become a cultivator? Seeing how Shui Haoling was so proud of himself, Cui Haoyan was even angrier than ever before. He had never before seen such a shameless guy. However, he had to admit that what Shui Haoling said was not unreasonable. Because he could not afford it, he was unable to defeat Shui Haoling in this situation. If he had the same financial resources and ability to purchase an inscription, then maybe things would have been different, but it was a pity that this was nothing but his imagination. "Master, why do I feel that this guy's inscription is familiar?" Little Black asked with his eyes filled with doubt. It was as if he had seen this inscription somewhere before. Suddenly Little White's eyes shone, and he said surprised, "Master, isn't this the inscription you made?" The owner had been drawing the same inscription over and over again. It was drawn so many times that it was clearly remembered by them all. This was her inscription. Hearing the words, Baili Hongzhuang was slightly embarrassed. It should just be a coincidence. She had auctioned 3 inscriptions in total back when she was still at Kanglin College. But how far away was Baishi from Kanglin? The chance was simply too small for this to happen. But Master, the pattern of the 6-pointed star is exactly like the one you drew. Baishi also noticed the inscription mark on the weapon and kept staring at the 6-pointed star. Even if it is a 6-pointed star, it is not certain it's the one I drew. Baili Hongzhuang smiled slightly. The pattern of the 6-pointed star is just a structure on the inscription paper. Many inscriptions has such a structure. Although the structure looks similar, it is not necessarily the same effect. But I think it's the same. Little Black looked serious. I even dare bet a mal that this is the inscription made by Master. Seeing Little Black suddenly saying it with such conviction, Baili Hongzhuang's eyes turned slightly strange. After being together with Little Black for as long as she had, she understood its character very well. If it did not have confidence, it would never say such a thing. Thinking of this, Baili Hongzhuang could not help but look at Shui Haoling and say, "Shui Haoling, your inscription is so great. I wonder if you'll let me take a look?" When her words fell, everyone looked at Baili Hongzhuang. They were frowning, as this was not the kind of behavior that Baili Hongzhuang had shown so far. Xia Jiqing and the others were also puzzled. Why was Baili Hongzhuang interested in Shui Haoling's inscription? According to their understanding, she ought to hate Shui Haoling. Cui Haoling's mind could not help but secretly think back to the time they were in the Wubao Pavilion. It had already been proved that she had a certain understanding of Inscriptions. Was it possible that Baili Hongzhuang wanted to look at Shui Haoling's inscription and adapt a strategy to defeat him? In Cui Haoyan's heart, Baili Hongzhuang would never do something without a purpose. She must have a good reason to suddenly do this. Shui Haoling, will there be a conspiracy with Baili Hongzhuang? Lu Jinglin saw this and could not help but worry. Right now, the team of Beihai College was at a disadvantage. If Baili Hongzhuang ruined Shui Haoling's inscription, then their situation would be even worse. However, Shui Haoling shook his hand and said in a carefree manner, "No, it is impossible to do it in front of everyone." Haoling looked at Baili Hongzhuang with interest and smiled lightly. Since you want to see it, then I will lend it to you, but don't break it. Seeing Haoling so proud, the eyes of Baili Hongzhuang could not help but gleam with laughter. This guy really liked to show off. Don't worry. Since you have been so polite, I will naturally not damage it. Baili Hongzhuang said lightly. Haoling's brows changed slightly as he walked to the front of Baili Hongzhuang. The sword was shaking slightly before it settled in front of her, allowing her to see the six-pointed star clearly. Can you see it now? Haoling asked with a smile, but I don't think you can understand it. However, Baili Hongzhuang clearly saw the pattern, and she was slightly stumped. Because this inscription was clearly from her hand, how could it fall into the hands of Haoling? Haoling, this inscription should not have been bought by your elders in Kanglan City. Baili Hongzhuang slowly sounded. She had already heard from Haoling that it was bought by his elders at an auction. In that case, then this inscription was in all likelihood bought in Kanglan City. It is impossible for someone to buy it and sell it in another auction house, after which it would fall into Haoling's hands. The probability was simply too small. When the words came Haoling's expression changed a bit. He had not said this, so how could Baili Hongzhuang know? On the other hand, the eyes of Lu Huayan and Fu Hongba landed on Haoling's boy. Baili Hongzhuang would not ask this question without a reason. There had to be something they did not know. However, Haoling, who is a cultivator of Beihai College, had his elders appearing in Kanglan City. That was simply too strange. With the expression of Haoling, Baili Hongzhuang has already confirmed that she had guessed correctly. Haoling's elders went to Kanglan, and it was likely to be before the tournament began. All along, she thought it was only a trap at the college tournament, but she did not expect that the reach of Beihai College had already reached Kanglan College. It was simply too much. Not only the expression of Haoling, but also the expression of Lu Jinglin and the others changed. The situation was never a secret in their eyes. Their purpose was to destroy the Kanglan College. It is just embarrassing to be called out like this by Baili Hongzhuang. The atmosphere became rather awkward, and the three teams on the ground were all aware of the truth. Lu Huayan and Fu Hongba looked uneasily at Mo Xinghai and Duan Yingwu. The Beihai College was truly more and more despicable. The face of Huan Chuyou was also not very good-looking. They had already noticed the movement of Beihai College, but they did not expect that they would have sent someone else this time. Although the biggest opponent is Lingyin College, they would never stoop so low to use such means. On the other hand, Beihai College is like a despicable villain. They did not care if it was doing something unspeakable and made people feel sick. Haoling quickly disagreed. How can there be an inscription at a place where not even the birds wants to go? I think you are thinking too much. Haoling's eyes were filled with disdain, but at the same time he was uncomfortable because of the words spoken by Baili Hongzhuang. However, the words of Haoling had successfully provoked the anger of the Kanglan cultivators. What did you say? I think Beihai City is the place where birds don't want to be. Cui Haoyin said coldly. This Haoling was truly the best case of ivory was incapable of coming out of a dog's mouth, Haoling said ironically. Is that so? If the city is a place where birds do not even want to be, then how could I buy inscriptions there? Haoling was getting better and better at lying. I told you my inscription was bought in Beihai City. Your jealousy is useless. Hearing this, Cui Haoyin looked at Haoling coldly. In fact, he knew that Songlong did not sell inscriptions. Even so, the city is still very prosperous, but Haoling said that it was a place that not even birds wanted to visit. Beihai City has wastes like yourself. There is no way we would be jealous, Xia Jiqing said. Haoling looked at Xia Jiqing with disgust. You might be good at talking, but you want to sneak into Beihai College to buy an inscription. Baili Hongzhuang's lips suddenly evoked a smile. Such an ordinary inscription. Why would we spend our money to buy it? Her voice just fell when Haoling sneered. Baili Hongzhuang, don't say the grapes are sour just because you can't eat them. Is it not obvious? Since you say it is an ordinary inscription, then let's see you come up with one like it. I saw that in your team. Apart from Gong Shaoqing, no one has an inscription. Haoling was feeling upset. The effect of this inscription has been personally tested, and the fire attribute attack was very good. The attack was very explosive, and it was lethal. It was suitable for attacking. The crowd also felt that Baili Hongzhuang was bragging. Even the most common inscription was not accessible to ordinary cultivators. Even some of them have never even seen an inscription. If you say this, is it not the same as digging a pit for yourself? The eyes of Hongxi was also falling onto Baili Hongzhuang. There might be some strength to this Baili Hongzhuang, but it is ridiculous to behave like this. Huan Chuyou's eyes landed on Baili Hongzhuang. He could not understand what her purpose was. Was it to intentionally anger Haoling? However, his understanding of Baili Hongzhuang was that she would never do such an immature thing. On Baili Hongzhuang's lips was a ridiculing smile. Originally, she did not understand the full effect of the inscription and thus wanted to take it out for auction. She did not want to take it out when she knew so little about it. Since then, she had focused on drawing inscriptions and not using them. Today, Haoling had helped her understand the strength of her inscription, so she no longer needed to worry about it. If I take it out, what will you do? Baili Hongzhuang asked. Haoling had never expected that she would be so serious about the matter, but he could not help but sigh. If you can take it up, then I will destroy my sword. Baili Hongzhuang was happy, and she wanted to annoy Haoling. She never expected he would dig a pit for himself. Are you sure you want to do this? Of course I am certain. Not waiting for Lu Jinglin to stop him, Haoling had already blurted out the words. He did not believe that Baili Hongzhuang could come up with this particular inscription. If she could really take it out, she would not have waited doing it until now. Seeing Haoling's fast promise, Lu Jinglin felt helplessness. She always felt that there was a trap prepared with the sudden change of Baili Hongzhuang. With her understanding of Baili Hongzhuang, this inscription was taken from Kanglan City back then. Baili Hongzhuang had been living in Kanglan City, so it might be possible for her. In that case, I will let you see it. Next, in front of everyone, Baili Hongzhuang directly took out a thick stack of inscriptions from her Qingquan bag. That's right, it was a thick stack. When he saw the same red six-pointed star pattern, Haoling almost fainted. How is this possible? Are you doing this especially to trouble me? With so many inscriptions, are you trying to sell them? Even if you want to sell inscriptions, do you need that many? Xia Jiqing and the others were also stunned. Baili Hongzhuang was truly against the sky. With so many inscriptions, how could she possibly be normal? Baili Hongzhuang took one of the inscriptions and shook it in front of Haoling. Isn't this the inscription you are so proud of? Then Baili Hongzhuang casually started playing with it and said, it's just that the inscription is very common. If it is used on a weapon, it will affect the future of the weapon, hence, I have never been using them. I did not think that you got this ordinary inscription and you'd still be so proud. If I did not show it to you, I am afraid you would not know how big the world is. Then Baili Hongzhuang took the inscriptions and handed them over to Xia Jiqing and to the others. There was some helplessness between her brows. If I knew earlier that this inscription was considered good, then I would have given it to you earlier to avoid us being made fun of like this. In fact, Baili Hongzhuang had some regrets. She used these inscriptions to practice. She never knew their actual strength. If she had known the strength, she would have already given them to everyone. Then at least Cui Haoyan would not have been beaten by Haoling. Cui Haoling and the others accepted the inscription from Baili Hongzhuang. Their eyes filled with shock and wonder. They already knew that Baili Hongzhuang was a master when it came to pill refinement, but now they knew she was a master of masters. Has anyone else seen inscriptions handled like this? Apart from Baili Hongzhuang, they were sure they would never find a second person. The cultivators of Beihai College had been greatly affected. They had seen how much increase in strength Haoling had gotten from the inscription, and they were envious. They would never have thought that Baili Hongzhuang could take out so many. and even gave them to her classmates for nothing. It was truly shocking. What kind of wonders did Kanglan College have this time? No one was calm, even Nangong, Xiujie, and the others. They too felt wronged after seeing the situation at this moment. Even if they were from the royal family, it was definitely impossible to come up with so many inscriptions. Nangong Xiujie and Nangong Yujin looked at one another, their eyes filled with disbelief. Having so many inscriptions, just who was this Baili Hongzhuang? Even the most common inscription like this was impossible for a person to get their hands on. It was difficult to meet an inscription master. Hongxi, who had been ridiculing her, couldn't help but change his expression after seeing this scene. The smug smile at the corner of his mouth also quickly disappeared. Chuyou also blinked for a moment, and the smile at the bottom of his eyes slowly expanded. Baili Hongzhuang was really amazing. However, there were no inscription masters in Kanglan City. How could Baili Hongzhuang know that the inscription from Shui Haoling was bought in Kanglan? Huanqiu's eyes were deep in thoughts. The inscription master who had drawn this inscription had to have a certain relationship with Baili Hongzhuang. Otherwise, why would she have so many of the same kind? Vice President Cang, it seems that you have been mistaken. Chuyou smiled faintly. He felt a victory when he saw Cang Hongxi defeated by his students like this. Cang Hongxi's expression was not good. The move of Baili Hongzhuang was different from anything they could have possibly thought of. There are so many inscriptions, and they all made people wonder whether it was authentic or not. However, as a vice president, he also knew that he could not come with any bad remarks. He could only let Chuyou be proud. Jian Qingxiu and Cang Hongxi looked at one another. According to the news they had gotten, Baili Hongzhuang was the ace of Kanglan College. Although there had already been a battle, no one knew her real strength, as Lu Jinglin never really got to put up a fight against her. Now it would seem that this Baili Hongzhuang was not a simple character. Hongzhuang, are you giving these inscriptions to us? Cui Haoyan's face was filled with shock. Although her actions had already explained her thoughts, he still couldn't help but ask. After all, the value of an inscription was much more expensive than that of the medications. Such an expensive thing, could they accept it just like that? Baili Hongzhuang was casual, and her beautiful face was adorned with a smile. Of course. Hongzhuang, this thing is too expensive. We can't. Dongfang Yu felt that they could not accept such an expensive thing. Not waiting for Dongfang Yu to finish his words, Baili Hongzhuang directly interrupted. Everyone here is my good friend, so just accept it. It's just that. Dongfang Yu was somewhat embarrassed. Even ordinary inscriptions were hard to get your hands on. What's more, the effect of this inscription was already so good, it felt weird accepting it just like that. Baili Hongzhuang waved her hand. This inscription is really not worth much money. Don't feel bad about it. Also, it is good to have the inscription for the next round of the tournament. Hearing this, Dongfang Yu could not help but nod on behalf of himself and the others. In fact, the next round of the tournament was the most important. The inscription played a huge role and would allow them to get better results in the tournament. Xia Jiqing was not sure what to say at this moment in time. She could only say that she was happy that she was friends with such a local tyrant. Zhang Yunfeng and the others looked at the inscription in their hands. Their hearts were full of gratitude towards Baili Hongzhuang. If it was changed to another person, it would be impossible to be as generous as Baili Hongzhuang. However, this scene was not the same for the cultivators of Beihai College. Everyone knows that inscriptions are valuable, but Baili Hongzhuang was giving them away so easily, so annoying. Then they thought about how Baili Hongzhuang had not cared about giving away the inscription in Wubao Pavilion to Gong Shaoqing. Back then they thought that she was being overly generous intentionally. But now they saw that Baili Hongzhuang was not just generous. She simply did not care about inscriptions. Haoling was the richest person in their team, but a single inscription of his made him so proud. Although he said that the inscription was not expensive, seeing his behavior, it was still not as cheap as he claimed. However, when seeing Baili Hongzhuang, one could truly see the gap that existed in their finances. This was like the inn where the wannabe local tyrant met a real local tyrant. My God, I thought that Kangling College was barren land. I did not expect that the students were so rich. It's good to be a teammate with this Baili Hongzhuang. Being able to be given an inscription just like that when they sell at such a high price. That Haoling from Beihai College was truly an idiot. Bragging about his inscription was nothing but a joke. In fact, Haoling's previous arrogance had caused many to feel dissatisfaction. Although it was good, was there need to show off like that? It was as if he was the richest man in the world, but Baili Hongzhuang directly hit him in the face. Feeling everyone's eyes on him, Haoling's face was also ugly, but he was unable to say anything. His elders had taken 3 inscriptions at the auction. Only Ghost knew how Baili Hongzhuang had managed to come up with so many of them. Moreover, as Baili Hongzhuang said, this inscription was not expensive. He had never used it before because he had felt that with the price, it could not be very good, but he had never expected the results to be so differently. When everyone asked him, he was naturally vain and wanted to brag, saying that the price of the inscription was very good. He had never expected that all this would be the same as making a wedding dress for Baili Hongzhuang, allowing her to show off instead. No, he had already shown that the inscription had a lot of value, but he was unable to say anything now. The most important thing is that even if he did say something now, then no one would believe him. He did not understand. The inscription master who made this inscription had an amazing skill. Why was the price of the inscription then so low? Although there is a lot of money in the world, who did not want more money? If Baili Hongzhuang knew the thoughts of Haoling, she would be unable to hold her laughter. She had no idea about how much it was worth, or even what it did when she put up for sale. She never really cared about the price. Baili Hongzhuang's eyebrows raised slightly, and a smile appeared on her lips as she looked at Haoling and casually said, I heard that someone wanted to destroy their weapon. When the voice fell, Haoling's face turned purple. He had never expected that he would dig such a trap for himself. Originally, this was not a problem. Who would have imagined that Baili Hongzhuang was able to take things to this step? For some time, he was unaware of what to do. Xia Jiqing and the others held interested expressions on their faces. Haoling, you still don't want to destroy your weapon? For Haoling to act like a villain, they had long since been used to it. Now that there was a chance to return some of their grievances, they would never allow Haoling to escape. Haoyin stared at Haoling. This guy won because of an inscription. He had also been ridiculing them time and time again. It was simply intolerable. Haoling, were you not very vocal before? Have you suddenly turned mute? Once the weapon is destroyed, his combat power would weaken tremendously, and he really regretted the words he said before. Lu Jingling's face was also ugly. If she had stopped him before, things would not end up like this. In the current situation, there was simply no way to escape. From the beginning to the end, Xiao Lanmei had the attitude that nothing mattered to him. It was as if Haoling was not his teammate, and no matter what he did, it had nothing to do with him. Suddenly, Haoling's eyes turned bright. He suddenly thought of an excellent method. His ugly face slowly looked better. How can you be so sure that it is the same inscription? Maybe it just looks the same, but the use is very different. Haoling never believed that Baili Hongzhuang was able to come up with so many inscriptions at once. The value of inscriptions were incredibly high, let alone so many of the same kind. He was sure that only an inscription master could come up with that many inscriptions of the same kind at one time. What's more, many inscriptions looked similar, but were fundamentally different. Previously, he was only scared by the inscriptions that Baili Hongzhuang had taken out. At this moment, he thought that he could blacken Baili Hongzhuang's reputation. With the voice of Haoling falling, the atmosphere of the scene changed again. As a result, no one could know who was speaking the truth. Haoyin and the others also looked at Baili Hongzhuang. They did not know the specifics of this inscription. However, they had absolute trust in Baili Hongzhuang. If she said it was the same inscription as the one Haoling had, then they would believe her without a doubt. Haoling proudly looked at Baili Hongzhuang. He would like to see how she was going to continue being so arrogant. Baili Hongzhuang's lips curled into a slight sneer as she said, "What if I prove it?" She was the most familiar with her own inscriptions and the effects of these inscriptions. However, with the practice she had experienced, the inscriptions in her hands might actually be even better than the one in the hands of Haoling. Haoling wanted to see Baili Hongzhuang panic, but what he saw was her complete confidence and calmness, causing his heart to feel unhappy. Damn it. Since the first time they met Baili Hongzhuang, they had never been able to understand this woman. Normally, every time they had been in a conflict, it was this woman who has solved it. Was she really so good at psychological fights? After eating a loss, Haoling also learned how to be smart and did not continue to be smart. You should first prove that it is the right one. Just a few pictures won't fool me. At a time like this, Haoling turned out to be like this. He really doesn't know what it is like to die. Little Black screamed out, "This guy was simply too much. He is just causing more and more trouble, but he will fall into despair soon." Little White's eyes were filled with a smile. Their master was not going to let them go easily. Haoling was causing so much trouble, and their master had never been soft. For Haoling's actions, they did not take her by surprise. Even in the coffin, he would not understand his mistake. In this case, she did not mind ensuring that he really died. Baili Haoling nodded to Cui Haoyin and smiled. "Cui Haoyin, if you don't mind, please engrave the inscription into the weapon and show Haoling the truth." Listening to Baili Hongzhuang, Cui Haoyin nodded with no problems. No problems. Previously, Haoling had been ridiculing him. He couldn't stand it anymore. Now that he had a chance, it was possible for him to return the ridicule. There was no chance he would miss it. Xia Jiqing and the others had expressions of watching a drama unfold in front of them. Haoling was going to get a good lesson. Zhang Yinfeng and the others were very calm and relaxed. Baili Hongzhuang had never made mistakes before. They just waited to see the good show. The scene attracted everyone's attention as no one knew if Baili Hongzhuang was correct or not. After seeing the scene, the people from Beihai College could not help but worry. The moment they could have been relaxing was now being used on inscriptions. Baili Hongzhuang seemed so confident. If it was really true and Cui Haoyin proved everything that she said was true, then Haoling was truly in a pickle. Haoling's eyes landed on Cui Haoling. He would lie if he said that he was not worried, and his palms began to sweat. Cui Haoyin looked at Haoling with a provocative look and directly added the inscription from Baili Hongzhuang on the weapon. There was a flaming red light that blinded them all. Before the inscription that had originally been printed on the inscription paper was now merged onto the weapon. Everyone could not help but feel that the inscription seemed to move slightly, and it appeared that the weapon was now shining slightly. At this moment, everyone was certain that the inscriptions that Baili Hongzhuang had brought forth were real, not fake at all. However, they still did not know if the inscription of Baili Hongzhuang had the same effect as Haoling's. It seems that it is a real inscription. I think that the inscription is the same as the one Haoling has, otherwise she would not take the initiative to say so. Then if it is true, did that not prove that the people of Beihai College went to Kanglan City? When the words came out, the people could not help but change their expression slightly. If it was truly like this, then they had made quite a few bad tricks behind the backs of the Kanglan College members. Just as everyone was busy discussing the effect of the inscription, Haoling's face was turning pale, because the inscription was exactly the same as his own. Even if they weren't the same, they were simply too similar. At this moment, he realized that Baili Hongzhuang had recognized his inscription, hence asking for permission to see it. It did not take long before Cui Haoyin had successfully branded the inscription onto his weapon, and he could not help but gaze at Haoling. His eyes lit up in triumph. Haoling, let me try and test this to see whether or not it is the same as your inscription. Next, Haoyan's inner energy surged directly into the weapon. The temperature rose, and the inscription on his weapon shone with a red light. Haoyan slashed out with the sword and saw how the fiery red sword cut out. A long gash of burnt ground was left in its wake. Seeing this scene, everyone erupted in surprise. This was almost exactly the same as Haoling's inscription. Wow, the power of this inscription is so strong. It has such a strong, flaming effect. So with this inscription, you don't have to worry about your opponent. If you are around the same strength, an inscription like this one can easily determine the victory. Everyone's faces was filled with shock. This inscription was truly magnificent. If they could get one themselves, their combat ability would also improve. For some time, all of them envied the teammates of Baili Hongzhuang. It was awesome to be friends with a local tyrant like her. Why didn't they know someone like Baili Hongzhuang so that good stuff like inscriptions landed on their heads? The students of Lingyin College had been disdainful towards Baili Hongzhuang, but at this moment the eyes that looked at her changed. She was the kind of person anyone wanted to befriend. There is no one who managed to stay calm. Even Nangong, Chuyou, and the others were shocked. After seeing the attack of Haoyan, their eyes also turned shocked. This inscription was truly magnificent. It could increase their combat ability by so much. However, no matter how amazing the inscription was, it was a fact that their relationship with Baili Hongzhuang was like fire and water. Even if she had so many inscriptions, they could not buy any of them. Nangong Yue'er's face was filled with displeasure. What's so great about them? It is just a few inscriptions. The inscriptions from Wu'er Pavilion are also very good. Her inscription came from Wu'er Pavilion, but it had taken her a lot of effort to get the inscription. The inscription masters were noble existences, and they did not care about anyone's face at all. Also, the inscription masters of Wu'er Pavilion would much rather study inscriptions. They had no actual interest in selling them. They would just occasionally place inscriptions at the Wu'er Pavilion for the sake of selling them. She was a princess and naturally wanted the inscription masters to draw one that suited her the most. It was all because her father helped her prepare a lot of materials for inscriptions that she managed to convince an inscription master to create an inscription for her. So far, she had spent a lot of time showing off this inscription. Because of this, she did not care about the inscriptions of Baili Hongzhuang. She just felt that Baili Hongzhuang was using it to stand out from the crowd. Nangong Xiujie and Nangong Yujin looked at one another. Nangong Yue'er had always been favored by their father. Only because of this favoritism was she able to get an inscription designed for her. The two of them had not been treated so well. Originally, they had planned on asking an inscription master to draw an inscription for them these few days. Unfortunately, the situation with Baili Hongzhuang had caused their father to become furious, and he naturally did not help them any longer. As for when they would have another chance, no one knew. Chapter 741. Not destroying it. Haoyan did not expect that his weapon would have such an outstanding effect after branding the inscription onto it. The power was more than just a little stronger than before. This kind of flame was very hard to guard against. Apart from avoiding it, it was also very troublesome when one faced it in a direct confrontation. He could faintly feel that this inscription was stronger than Haoling's. Recently, he had always been admiring Baili Hongzhuang. He could not imagine how she was doing all this. The kind of things that were difficult for any ordinary person were a breeze for Baili Hongzhuang. Now he could not help but think that when something strange happened with Baili Hongzhuang, it was not so difficult to accept it any longer. Because Baili Hongzhuang was not an ordinary person. Just as Baili Hongzhuang had married Di Baichun, this was already an amazing feat in the eyes of ordinary people. Haoling, it would seem that our inscription is the exact same. Haoyan's face was smug, and he was smiling with ridicule. He had been humiliated by Haoling before, and now it was time for him to fight back. Now, Haoling could find no way to fight back. Everything proved that Baili Hongzhuang was saying the truth, but when it came to destroying his own weapon, it was simply impossible. All he had done so far was to achieve good results in the college tournament. If his weapon was destroyed, how could he possibly achieve good results? The lips of Baili Hongzhuang rose into a shallow but charming smile as she said, "You're a man of your word. Shui Haoling, you aren't going to admit your promise from earlier? There are so many people present. If you don't complete your promise, then you will lose all your reputation." Baili Hongzhuang knew that Shui Haoling was naturally unwilling to destroy his weapon. However, she was never willing to be soft to her enemy. Shui Haoling's face was ugly. This Baili Hongzhuang seemed to have guessed his thoughts. The way she spoke left him no way of retreating. Obviously, Baili Hongzhuang was trying to force him to destroy his weapon. Once the weapon was broken, then his next battle would not be easy. What is the difference between this and giving up the tournament? He looked around, his gaze slightly on the crowd. It was difficult to choose what to do. Shui Haoling, just say that you can't do it. Then I can look down on you. At this time, Xia Jiqing naturally didn't mind falling out with him. Shui Haoling was a guy who had caused them many problems. It was hard to have a chance to humiliate him. Now she would not miss it. After witnessing this scene, Hongxi could not help but think that Shui Haoling was an idiot. Many things could be done, but he directly dug a hole and jumped into it by himself. He did not understand why he would ever say that he would destroy his own weapon. Now that it had been said, he had no other option than to do what he promised. After a long time, Shui Haoling finally said, "You said this to fool me intentionally. I will not destroy my weapon." He had made a decision to not destroying his weapon. What could Baili Hongzhuang do about it? Even if everyone was making fun of him now, as long as he got good results in the tournament, all these negative comments would vanish. Chapter 742, Baili Hongzhuang is powerful when Shui Haoling said so shamelessly. Even the crowd who was observing was stunned. The face of Shui Haoling was simply too thick, wasn't it? Even if you were shameless, to speak out so confidently like Shui Haoling did, this was not something an ordinary person was capable of doing. Cui Haoyan was also angered into laughing as he speechlessly watched Shui Haoling before finally asking, "Shui Haoling, are you even a man?" Shui Haoling's face was ugly. No matter what he said now, he would just cause people to despise him even more, so it was best to just stay quiet. Next, Shui Haoling walked straight back to the resting place. He had decided to not do anything before the end of the college tournament. This Shui Haoling is really shameless. I did not expect Beihai College to behave like this. I only heard about how bad the Kangling College is, but now it seems that it is really the cultivators of Beihai College who are trash. The cultivators of Beihai College are really bad. The hearts of the audience were silent for a while. They could not understand how Shui Haoling was able to say such words with a proud face. If it was them, they would never be able to remain behind after such a loss of face. However, when looking at Shui Haoling, it seemed like he did not care. Cui Haoyan was even more annoyed. This guy is too shameless. I will destroy his weapon for him. Seeing that Cui Haoyan was about to move, Baili Hongzhuang stopped him. Cui Haoyan, don't worry. Shui Haoling has made up his mind. Even if he was forced to destroy his weapon, he would not do it. Also, he'd just say that we are undermining the test, since he won't be able to join the next round without a weapon, and that would be very troublesome. The face of Baili Hongzhuang was indifferent. For Shui Haoling, who had no bottom line, it was very likely that he would do something like this. Hearing this, Cui Haoyan could not help but frown. Should we just let him act like this? Baili Hongzhuang waved her hand. His heart is already chaotic. Even if he participates in the next round, he will have a hard time getting good results. He has already ruined his own reputation. This might be even better than ruining a weapon. If Shui Haoling had just ruined the weapon, he would be respected and people would be optimistic about him. But his actions had proved that he was a real villain, and everyone was very disgusted with him. It is difficult to understand what Shui Haoling was thinking. It was better to give Shui Haoling a bit of space, to make them seem generous. Hongzhuang is not incorrect. Cui Haoyin, you should not care. Gong Xiaoqing's voice slowly sounded, but his heart was once more filled with admiration for Baili Hongzhuang. This woman was really nothing that an ordinary woman could compare to. Whether it is strength or wisdom, it was far from ordinary people. Others were always at a disadvantage. After Baili Hongzhuang spoke, there was a bit of understanding in the rest. She was really too powerful. After Baili Hongzhuang finished speaking, Cui Haoyin understood it and immediately nodded. I understand. Xia Jiqing and the others were no longer hesitant and immediately used the inscriptions given to them by Baili Hongzhuang. This way they performed better in the tournament. Chapter 743. Opponents of the second round, Huan. Chuyou looked at Song Hongxi with a smile and said slowly, Vice President Song, the hearts of your student are not so good. Now that the college exchange tournament was ongoing, the behavior of the students represented the colleges, and Haoling's actions were the same as losing face for the entire Beihai College. Such a great opportunity. Naturally, Huan Chuyou would not miss it. The face of Song Hongxi was quite ugly. What Haoling had done was not very good. But no matter what, Haoling had already acted like this, and nothing could change it. When listening to the ridiculing words of Huan Chuyou, Song Hongxi was also quite angry. In the past, he was always the one who laughed at the Kangling College. When had this been turned around? Vice President Huan, this was because of your good students. If it wasn't because of her, how could Haoling fall to such a situation? It seems that the students of Kangling College have only learned about using tricks these last 3 years. Saying Song Hongxi, starting an argument. Huan Chuyou was not in a hurry, and instead a gentle smile hung on his face. It only worked because he was stupid enough. When he said this, Huan Chuyou was not interested in paying any more attention to Song Hongxi. This old guy had always liked to blame others for his faults. This had been the case for many years, and Huan Chuyou already knew about the temperament of the other guy. But Song Hongxi was filled with hatred. Huan Chuyou actually said that his student was stupid. Just as Song Hongxi was about to retort, Jian Xingqiu looked at him directly and shook his head unnoticeably, blocking the words he wanted to say. Jian Xingqiu's mood was foul. He had planned on insulting Kangling College, but things were not going his way. Now, because of the Beihai College, the brilliance of Kangling College had been brought to light, so he was feeling immensely depressed. If the Kangling College students were allowed to continue like this, he would really become angry. When he felt the eyes of Jian Xingqiu, Song Hongxi dared no longer say anything, although he was fuming with anger on the inside. Lu Huayan and Fu Hongba looked at each other, their eyes filled with a smile. They had not been this happy for a long time, and Mo, Xinghai, and Duan Yingwu had been using their identity to press down on the two of them. Now they could finally stay proud. The hour of break soon passed, and after a bit of time, everyone had been restored quite a bit. The second round of battle will now begin. With the sound of Jian Xingqiu's voice, the cultivators who had advanced to the second round slowly stood up and looked in the direction of the stage. To determine who you are to battle in the second round, we will also use a lottery. 5 students will be randomly selected to start the lottery. Baili Hongzhuang stood in place. No matter who her opponent was, she did not care. Her thoughts were that soldiers would block the army, earth would block the water. Xia Jiqing was holding her long whip, her heart filled with excitement. She had already tested it. After adding the inscription, her attack power was much stronger than before. Soon, everyone had been drawn. Xia Jiqing against Nangong, Yue'er, Gong Xiaoqing against Haoling, Dongfang Yu against Nangong Xiujie, Baili Hongzhuang against Nanyangza, Xiao Lanxian against Jin Xingyu. Lin Hao, the vice president of Lingyin College, slowly read the announced opponents. Some of those who heard it were happy, while others were worried. Chapter 744, Baili Hongzhuang, come on. Fortunately, this time the draw was not made by the students. Now, please, Xia Jiqing and Nangong Yue'er go to the arena. Lin Hao's face held a slight smile. Nangong Yue'er was very strong, and although Xia Jiqing held some strength, but she was definitely not on Nangong Yue'er's strength, because Nangong Yue'er had broken through the innate realm. In the second round of the competition, the stakes were much higher than they were in the first round, but even so, no one was giving up. Jiqing, go on! The cultivators of Kangling College were all cheering for Xia Jiqing. Although they felt that Nangong Yue'er was strong, as long as she could fight back, it was already very good. Xia Jiqing nodded solemnly and said, I will. Nangong Yue'er was faster than Xia Jiqing, and her body flashed as she jumped directly into the arena. However, the words of Nangong Yue'er surprised everyone. Baili Hongzhuang, you come up. When the words came out, everyone looked at Nangong Yue'er. They didn't understand if she was only trying to stir up trouble. I want to compete against you. Nangong Yue'er continued to stress this point. She had originally hoped that she would directly draw Baili Hongzhuang as an opponent. She had not expected it to be Xia Jiqing. The strength of Xia Jiqing was not strong enough to defeat her, but it was a waste of her time to fight her. She couldn't wait to fight Baili Hongzhuang, not for any other reason, only because of the unknown relationship between Yunjue and Baili Hongzhuang. At this point, she could not let go of Baili Hongzhuang. Lin Hao was stunned for a moment. What was the third princess doing? Nangong Yue'er, your opponent is Xia Jiqing. Lin Hao tried to persuade her. Nangong Yue'er was unmoved. I know, but I want to fight against Baili Hongzhuang. Noisy. Jian Xingqiu's brows became slightly wrinkled. He understood Nangong Yue'er's messy temper. However, the entire Lingyin College relied on the royal family. Therefore, he had to turn a blind eye to Nangong Yue'er's temper. However, he had not expected that she would make such a big fuss at this college tournament. Originally, with the strength of Nangong Yue'er, she would win the battle with Xia Jiqing and advance to the next round. But she had to challenge Baili Hongzhuang. Baili Hongzhuang was the ace of Kangling College. She would not be easy to beat. Roun Yulong was in a very bad mood because he had been punished for leaving the Kangling College group outside the gates. Now he could not even participate in the tournament. At this moment, he just heard the request of Nangong Yue'er. Although he did not know why she asked for such a request, he was very indulgent towards Nangong Yue'er. Thinking of this, Roun Yulong immediately said, Principal, the opponent is determined by lottery. Since Nangong Yue'er has such a request, as long as Baili Hongzhuang is willing, this is also a good idea. If Baili Hongzhuang does not dare accept, then that is it. Baili Hongzhuang's brows furrowed slightly. She had never seen this Roun Yulong before. She had not expected him to be so against her. It was really strange. Chapter 745, Baili Hongzhuang should fight. Hongzhuang. Who is this person? Why is the way he speaks so ugly? Xia Jiqing frowned. The way the other person said those things, it sounded as if Baili Hongzhuang was afraid of Nangong Yue'er if she declined to challenge. It seemed like it was giving Baili Hongzhuang a choice, when in fact there was no choice at all. The eyes of Baili Hongzhuang shone with wisdom as she looked at the person. This person should be the mentor of Lingyin College. I heard that we were blocked because a mentor wanted to embarrass us. It is very likely that he is that person. Xia Jiqing was stunned. She had also heard this rumor from the mouth of the Beihai College practitioners. The other party obviously wanted to ridicule them with this opportunity, so they also knew from the beginning what was going on. Jian Xingqiu's expression was hard to describe. As a principal, what he hated the most was when things did not go as expected. Originally, he had intended to just ignore Nangong Yue'er and let her challenge whomever she wanted without accepting it. However, now things had changed, since Roun Yulong was actually a mentor of the Lingyin College. Baili Hongzhuang, do you have the guts to face me? Nangong Yue'er's chin was slightly raised, and her expression was filled with arrogance. There was a provocative look within her brows. She was confident that everything about her, including her background and her strength, was better than Baili Hongzhuang. No matter what kind of fox-like seduction method she used to seduce Yunjue, she would never let her shine. What problems are there between Baili Hongzhuang and the third princess? Why is she so fixated on Baili Hongzhuang? I don't know. Maybe it is because an outstanding woman can't handle another outstanding woman and wants to deal with her. You don't know about this, but I heard that Baili Hongzhuang is the wife of Yunjue. This is naturally the reason for her hostility. When an informed person said the real reason behind her hostility, the others were filled with amazement. This was truly surprising. Really? Of course it is real. I personally saw Gongzi call Baili Hongzhuang his lady on the first tower that day. Compared to the arrogance and provocation of Nangong Yue'er, Baili Hongzhuang still looked calm and tranquil. Since the third princess want to test my strength, then naturally I do not mind. Chuyou could not help but look at Chuyou with a little helplessness. Old Huan, this matter, what should we do? Chuyou still had a gentle look on his face, and when he looked at Baili Hongzhuang, he casually said, "Since both of them are willing, just let them go." Chuyou nodded slightly, his expression turning better. Since Nangong Yue'er and Baili Hongzhuang both agree, they will fight against one another. Xiaojiqing will fight against Nanyangza in the 4th round. Boss, go show her. Xiaojiqing's eyes were sparkled with conviction. She was worried as to the reason why Nangong Yue'er suddenly challenged the boss. She always felt that she was quite stupid. Hongzhuang, you have to be careful. Zhang Yunfeng and the others voiced their warnings, their eyes filled with worry. Even so, they firmly believed in the strength of Baili Hongzhuang. So far, every performance that Baili Hongzhuang had made them believe in her unconditionally. They didn't care who Nangong Yue'er was. As long as she was an opponent, she would be defeated. Chapter 746. Grabbed her. Man? Baili Hongzhuang nodded slightly and slowly walked towards the stage under everyone's eyes. Nangong Xiujue and Nangong Yujin looked at one another. It seemed that their previous words had truly stimulated Nangong Yue'er. Because of this, she would act so willful in this college exchange. The strength of our sister is very good. It will be easy for her to defeat Baili Hongzhuang. Nangong Yujin looked indifferent. Even he had to praise Nangong Yue'er's talent for cultivation. Nangong Yue'er is younger than him, but she was stronger than him. Because of this, their father was more fond of her than him. Nangong Xiujie looked at Baili Hongzhuang's back indifferently. I wanted to personally solve the problem with Baili Hongzhuang. Now it seems like I don't need to be the one shooting. This group of wastes from Kangling College are not our opponents. Even if they entered the 2nd round of the tournament, it was just by luck. Nangong Xiujie's eyes were filled with disdain. It was this group of wastes which had made him lose face in first tower. It was simply unforgivable. If he had known that Baili Hongzhuang and the others were from Kangling College, then he would have definitely crippled them. Nangong Yujin nodded his head. Although he did not advance to the 2nd round, this was not a big deal for him. Baili Hongzhuang slowly walked onto the stage, standing in front of Nangong Yue'er. Nangong Yue'er was wearing a purple and pink skirt. She was a pretty young lady with quite a bit of charm. She looked cute, but there was arrogance written all over her face. Baili Hongzhuang was much more mature and elegant. Her face was cold like ice, making people feel unable to get close. However, such a Baili Hongzhuang was even more unattainable. Baili Hongzhuang, I can see you have a bit of guts, Nangong Yue'er smiled coldly. But you will soon regret your choice. Baili Hongzhuang was not moving. I have never regretted a decision I made. I don't know why you hate me so much. So far she was still unaware of why Nangong Yue'er was so hostile toward her. If it was for Nangong Xiujie, then it made no sense as he should make the attack on her himself. Would he really need his sister to come out for him? Seeing that Baili Hongzhuang did not even know the reason for her anger, Nangong Yue'er was fuming mad. This was a one-of-a-kind grievance. Her not knowing was simply just showing that she did not care about her existence at all. It was naked contempt. However, the doubtful look on Baili Hongzhuang's face was not likely to be an act. Did this woman really not know that they are rivals? You dared to grab my man, so you are destined to pay the price. Nangong Yue'er was surprisingly straightforward. She directly said those overbearing words and did not care what impact it might have on her. Grabbed her man. Baili Hongzhuang was somewhat stunned and couldn't help but think about Baishi. This guy should not have met Nangong Yue'er before. This guy went to Tiangang's sect during this time. So how could he possibly appear in the Qing dynasty and cause trouble for her? When it was said, Xia Jiqing and the others were also stunned. This was an explosive news. Chapter 747. Enemies meet, green with envy, is this it? The charm of Baishi sure travels far. Xia Jiqing couldn't help but feel stunned, but she had to admit that Baishi was very attractive. But this is the Qing dynasty. When did Baishi come here? Zhang Yunfeng and the others were also puzzled. They had racked their brains to find a reason for Nangong Yue'er's hatred, but they would never have thought that this was the reason. Dongfang Yu and the others were silent for quite some time. They did not know what to say. In the case of a love rival, the battle between women was much more intense than it was between men. Nangong Xiujie and Nangong Yujin were also feeling helpless. This straightforward personality of Nangong Yue'er was truly troublesome. She was a royal princess and had to uphold the royal name. But what was said today completely threw away their face. Jian Qingqiu, Lin Hao, and even Huan Chuyou were sitting above the platform, and all of them were feeling rather strange. Previously, Huan Chuyou had thought it was a tactic that Lingyin College had planned. He had not expected that this was an emotional dispute between juniors. They really didn't know what to say. Nangong Yue'er, Hongzhuang is already married. What man has been grabbed from you? It is clear that you are trying to grab her man. Xia Jiqing had to say what she thought. This was simply a joke. The truth had to be revealed. Just by looking at Nangong Yue'er's arrogance, she knew that Nangong Yue'er was the one stalking. Baishi would never look at her. Nangong Yue'er was already completely ignoring her face, and with Xia Jiqing's words, it was clear that she was jealous of Baili Hongzhuang. Everyone in the crowd looked at one another. They had not expected that the news they heard would be true. The cultivators of Lingyin College had a difficult time to accept it. Nangong Yue'er had always been the goddess in their minds. Baili Hongzhuang had already married, yet Nangong Yue'er even wanted to grab her man. This made them unable to continue seeing Nangong Yue'er as their goddess. When she listened to Xia Jiqing's words, Nangong Yue'er's face was really ugly. It seemed that what her third brother told her was actually the truth. Yunjue turned out to be married to Baili Hongzhuang, and she had liked him for so long, but she had not heard even the slightest whisper about it. At the thought of this, the eyes of Nangong Yue'er also turned a bit red. Regardless of how good the relationship between Baili Hongzhuang and Yunjue was, the man she fancied had to be hers. Baili Hongzhuang. Even if you have a relationship with him now, he is destined to be my man. Nangong Yue'er raised her chin high. Civilians like Baili Hongzhuang had no right to compete with her. Baili Hongzhuang was carefree. Although she did not know the relationship between Baishi and Nangong Yue'er, she was sure that this was all just wishful thinking of Nangong Yue'er. At this time, a black figure appeared near the martial arts platform. A man that was tall and handsome stepped forward. His appearance caught many people's attention. Gongzi. Seeing Yunjue, Cui Haoyin, and the others showed a smile on their faces. They were very fond of this friend they had found in the Qing dynasty. Yunjue smiled slightly before he went to Cui Haoyin and the others. Chapter 748. Might have a misunderstanding. Gongzi. How come you are here? Xia Jiqing asked with a happy smile on her face. I heard that today was the day for the tournament, so I came to cheer for you. It's just that there were some problems in the restaurant that delayed me a bit, so I am late. Listening to the words of Mo Yunjue, the faces of all the others filled with smiles. Even though Mo Yunjue was a member of the Qing dynasty, he did not cheer for Lingyin College, but cheered for them instead. This was indeed shocking. Cui Haoyin and Dongfang Yu looked at one another. As a man, they were able to discern that Mo Yunjue had a good impression of Baili Hongzhuang. If this was not the case, there was no need for Mo Yunjue to offend the second prince for them. In fact, everything Mo Yunjue has done has been for Baili Hongzhuang. They believed that Mo Yunjue had come for the sake of helping Baili Hongzhuang, so for that reason, he was also their good friend. Hey, that's Mo Ganzi from the first tower. He must have come to cheer for Baili Hongzhuang. Baili Hongzhuang is a student of Cang College. I didn't know she was actually the wife of Mo Gongzi. It's very fortunate. I don't know what Mo Gongzi thinks. The third princess is also very good, but he seems to be unmoved. I think the third princess is too arrogant. Do you really want to marry someone like her? On the other hand, Baili Hongzhuang is good, much more suitable as a wife. Everyone had their own opinion, but they were all filled with interest towards this love triangle. Gong Shaoqing and the others had their expressions changing after hearing the words of the surrounding people. There seems to be a misunderstanding. Xia Jiqing and Zhang Yinfeng looked at each other. The man that Nangong Yue'er liked was Mo Yunjue. If this is the case, then this misunderstanding is really too big. Mo Yunjue's face held a slight smile, and his eyes landed on Baili Hongzhuang. This woman was always proud and strong. He believed that there would be a good performance this time at the tournament. Almost at the exact moment that Mo Yunjue arrived, Nangong Yue'er noticed him. She also saw that the man who was in her heart only had eyes for Baili Hongzhuang. Mo Yunjue had not seemed to even notice her existence. The smile on his face was solely because of Baili Hongzhuang. Since the first tower opened in the imperial capital, she had seen Mo Yunjue many times, but it was immensely rare to see him smile. Most often, Mo Yunjue's face held no expression. She always thought that he disliked smiling. Now it seems that he did not dislike smiling. He just disliked smiling at her. A crazy jealousy swept through her heart. She was going to kill Baili Hongzhuang. What she can't get, she will never let others have either. Baili Hongzhuang could also feel the killing intent that started bursting out of Nangong Yue'er's body, but she was still not nervous or felt panic. In fact, she had been the target of many different killing intents throughout her life. The killing intent displayed by Nangong Yue'er was still quite ordinary. However, the fact that Nangong Yue'er wanted to kill her was out of her expectations. The tournament had always banned killing their opponents, but it seemed that these rules did not matter to the third princess. She completely ignored all rules and did whatever she wanted to do. Thinking about this, Baili Hongzhuang could not help to show a bit of disgust in her eyes. Chapter 749. Nangong Yue'er at the second layer of the Red Realm. She was not disgusted with people who had killing intent, but she was full of disgust towards Nangong Yue'er, a person who only knew about her own interests and completely ignored the lives of others. It is like, just because she was born in the royal family, everything was fine, even if she trampled upon others. Begin. When the judge's voice fell, Baili Hongzhuang and Nangong Yue'er immediately began fighting. Nangong Yue'er's eyes were glaring at Baili Hongzhuang. As long as you admit defeat and promise to leave Mo Yunjue, I will let you go. How about that? Hearing this, Baili Hongzhuang was slightly stunned. Mo Yunjue, when she thought about what had happened before in the first tower, and that Nangong Yujin had whispered something to Nangong Yue'er, it all made sense to her. The person that Nangong Yue'er likes is Mo Yunjue, not Baishi. The mood of Baili Hongzhuang improved a bit after understanding this. It's just Mo Yunjue and her? It seems to be a misunderstanding. The line of sight of Baili Hongzhuang turned slightly as she glanced at Mo Yunjue, who was standing beneath the stage, before she looked at Nangong Yue'er. She saw that Nangong Yue'er was being arrogant, as if Baili Hongzhuang should be extremely grateful for her to offer her this option. In fact, this was exactly what Nangong Yue'er thought. Baili Hongzhuang immediately put away the thought of explaining the misunderstanding to her. Since Nangong Yue'er believes so, then let her believe it. You think too much. The voice of Baili Hongzhuang was very cold. Obviously, she did not pay attention to the words of Nangong Yue'er. For the arrogance of Nangong Yue'er, it was simply better to just defeat her. When she said this, Nangong Yue'er's face turned ugly. Baili Hongzhuang dared to speak to her in such a way. It was simply unforgivable. Since you won't listen, I will fulfill your death wish. Nangong Yue'er was gloomy. Usually this kind of person, who did not know good from bad, would end up dead soon. Baili Hongzhuang still looked calm. Stop with all this nonsense. Just begin fighting. She did not want to spend any more time on this boring situation. She wanted to end the fight as soon as possible. The so-called princess was nothing in her eyes, seeing that Baili Hongzhuang dared to take the lead to challenge her. Nangong Yue'er was so angry she began laughing. She did not expect that Kangling College's ace was so stupid. The people also felt the sharp atmosphere on the stage, and their excitement grew stronger and stronger. It seemed this was a battle worth seeing. Baili Hongzhuang is really stupid. She still dares to provoke Yue'er at this point in time. I am afraid that it will be impossible for her to walk down the stage in the future. Nangong Xiujie smirked. What kind of temper Nangong Yue'er had? It was quite obvious. From a moment she knew about the relationship between Mo Yunjue and Baili Hongzhuang, she had sentenced Baili Hongzhuang to death. On the stage, the battle was about to begin. The strength within Nangong Yue'er's body surged, and the power of the second layer of the Red Realm exploded outwards. Feeling the steady breath and pulsating energy, everyone's eyes were filled with shock. The second layer of the Red Realm. The third princess has already broken through the second layer of the Red Realm. Oh my, the third princess has already broken through to the second layer of the Red Realm. Her talent is so strong. This Baili Hongzhuang is so unfortunate. Her and the third princess are not at the same rank at all. Chapter 750 must undoubtedly win. When the strength exploded out of Nangong Yue'er, almost everyone was certain that it was going to be her winning. To be able to break through to the second layer of the Red Realm at such a young age, her talent was outstanding. What's more, Baili Hongzhuang was slightly younger than Nangong Yue'er, so she was definitely not the opponent of the third princess. Jian Qingqiu's eyes were also showing a touch of joy. Nangong Yue'er was still a first-layer cultivator of the Red Realm earlier. He had not expected her to break through. It was really a surprise. As long as Nangong Yue'er defeated Baili Hongzhuang, then Kangling College was doomed to achieve bad results. However, compared to the excitement of the Lingyin College, the Kangling College were unnaturally calm. This is really a group of frogs in a well. The second layer of the Red Realm, and she is sure to win? Our Hongzhuang is a monster in disguise. Xia Jiqing's expression was lit with excitement. She knew that Baili Hongzhuang had also reached the second layer of the Red Realm. So what if Nangong Yue'er was talented? Baili Hongzhuang was even more talented. Wait for it. Hongzhuang will definitely win. Zhang Yunfeng's eyes were filled with trust. Even from the beginning, they had never been worried about Baili Hongzhuang being defeated. Nangong Xiujie and the others wanted to see the panic in the faces of Kangling College's students. However, there was no reaction at all. A bit of doubt appeared in their hearts. Could it be that they think that Baili Hongzhuang still has a chance of winning? Nangong Xiujie thought about the talent of Nangong Yue'er, which could basically dwarf all others of the same age. Not to mention that Baili Hongzhuang was younger than Nangong Yue'er. Listening to the words of Nangong Xiujie, Nangong Yue'er immediately dismissed the thoughts. Second brother, don't joke, it is impossible. I hear that Baili Hongzhuang should have inherited something in the ruins. Maybe. Second brother, don't worry, they're just shocked. They haven't had a chance to react yet. Nangong Yujin's face was filled with a smile. When the principal had praised Yue'er and said she was a genius, he knew she wouldn't be defeated. It is impossible to create a cultivator who is more powerful than Nangong Yue'er in such a poor place as the Kangling College. He was certain that the Kangling College would fail here in the second round of the competition. Hongxi could not help but look at Huan Chuyou. This Baili Hongzhuang was really stupid. As long as Baili Hongzhuang had not agreed, it was impossible for the Lingyin College to force her into fighting. As a result, there would have been a chance for her to advance in the next round. But because of her willfulness, she could only stop here. However, when Hongxi saw that Huan Chuyou was still looking calm, as if he wasn't too shocked by what he saw, he was surprised. But he could not help but sneer. Pretender. Even now, he can still pretend to be calm. When the results were out, he would see how Huan Chuyou would still pretend. However, in the next moment, the power of Baili Hongzhuang was also released, and everyone present was shocked once more. Even Hongxi was shocked. Chapter 751. You are not my opponent's second layer of the Red Realm. A power that was not weaker than Nangong Yue'er burst out of Baili Hongzhuang's body. Everyone seemed to have an illusion that this strength was even stronger than Nangong Yue'er's. How is this possible? Everyone took a deep breath. Nangong Yue'er was already acknowledged as a genius. How did Baili Hongzhuang become one too? Not to mention, she was younger than Nangong Yue'er. Does that not mean that Baili Hongzhuang's talent was better than Nangong Yue'er? At the thought of this, everyone looked at one another, unaware of what to say. Nangong Yue'er looked at Baili Hongzhuang in shock. She couldn't believe that Baili Hongzhuang actually had such a cultivation base. It must be said that she just broke through the second layer within the last few days. Wasn't it saying that Baili Hongzhuang had a better cultivation talent than her? Instinctively, Nangong Yue'er felt it was unacceptable, and her arrogance dropped by a few points. This way, they were at the same starting point, and no one knew how the battle would end. The look on Baili Hongzhuang's face was indifferent. It seemed that she did not think much about the second layer of the Red Realm. In contrast, Nangong Yue'er's mood was getting worse and worse. This kind of attitude was simply annoying. Even if you have reached the second layer of the Red Realm, you are not my opponent. Soon Nangong Yue'er found her confidence again. She was a royal princess. The royal family was someone that other people simply couldn't compare with. It was impossible to compare her to other geniuses that were born in her generation. Baili Hongzhuang looked indifferently at Nangong Yue'er. You say so much nonsense. When she said this, Nangong Yue'er got even angrier. Didn't this damn woman understand the gap between them? Since you want to die, I will let you die. Nangong Yue'er was unstoppable. Her body was rushing forward, her strength surging majestically in her hand, and she did not hesitate to blast it at Baili Hongzhuang. Bang! The fists and legs were constantly meeting one another, shock waves rippling through the air. Nangong Yue'er was not being merciful at all. Every attack was unrelentingly aimed for Baili Hongzhuang's vital parts. Boom! There was another collision with the two's fists. Nangong Yue'er felt as if she had been punching on iron, and her hand was aching in pain. On the other hand, Baili Hongzhuang was not moving, as if she had not been affected by the impact at all. Damn it! How could Baili Hongzhuang's strength be so domineering? Nangong Yue'er was not satisfied in her heart, and she refused to admit it. You are too brutal, she sneered. At least I am not like you, Baili Hongzhuang answered. Her words did not leave any face for Nangong Yue'er, causing her face to turn ugly. She regretted that she could not immediately shred Baili Hongzhuang. Bang! Baili Hongzhuang did not give Nangong Yue'er a chance to retreat. Her tyrannical and fierce attacks continued to rain down upon Nangong Yue'er's body. Under the offensive of Baili Hongzhuang, Nangong Yue'er stepped back. She was unable to resist this kind of attack. Seeing this scene, the look of the observing people had changed a bit. Who could have thought of the fact that it was Nangong Yue'er who was at a disadvantage? Chapter 752. Isn't she too stupid? Stop chasing me. Nangong Yue'er's body had retreated a few steps, trying to keep a distance from Baili Hongzhuang. Her face was pale, and she had not expected the physical strength of Baili Hongzhuang to be so overwhelming. It was as if she could not compete against Baili Hongzhuang. The faces of Nangong Xiujie and Nangong Yujin were also suddenly turning strange. They were aware of how strong Nangong Yue'er was. They had not expected that she would come at a disadvantage when fighting against Baili Hongzhuang. It would seem that the strength of Baili Hongzhuang was not simple. Previously, because her first opponent, Lu Jinglin, had such weak strength, she had not been able to find out the depth of Baili Hongzhuang's power. This had caused them all to underestimate her. Next, Nangong Yue'er took out a fiery red sword. The sword's blade was red, and it was engraved with delicate lines, shining coldly under the sunlight. Upon seeing it, Baili Hongzhuang did not hesitate and took out her own glass sword. Nangong Yue'er did not delay herself, rushing towards Baili Hongzhuang once more. She had already tried once, but now she was going to regain everything she had lost before. Boom! The two women collided, and the sound of their swords clashing spread. Everyone saw that the two of them were shrouded in the wind and dust that was kicked up by the collision. The purple and white figures were constantly intertwined. Even the hard ground beneath their feet was starting to show cracks. Sparks were flashing everywhere. Even though the people were not part of the battle, they could feel the danger of it. If they were not careful, then they would be seriously injured. Azure Rainbow Sword! Nangong Yue'er screamed out as her majestic Yuan Qi flowed into the sword. After which, the sword grew in size as it burst towards Baili Hongzhuang. Everyone could feel the power of this sword, and no one doubted that if this attack landed on Baili Hongzhuang, if she did not die, she would be seriously injured. Shadowless kill. Baili Hongzhuang's movement was not slow. When Nangong Yue'er displayed her martial art techniques, she also used hers. Everyone saw a flash of silver, but they never saw what martial art that Baili Hongzhuang had displayed. They were all curious in their hearts. They knew she had used some sort of skill, but there was not even the slightest bit of movement. Baili Hongzhuang elegantly sidestepped and easily escaped Nangong Yue'er's attack. When the sword Qi landed on the ground, there was a crack that was over a dozen meters long. When they saw this, everyone in the audience sucked in a cold breath of air. The martial arts of the royal family were really deserving of their reputation. Fortunately, Baili Hongzhuang was fast enough to move, otherwise her body was likely to have been chopped into two now. Ah! A sharp scream rang out, and then everyone looked at Nangong Yue'er. They did not know when, but when they looked, they saw that blood was oozing out of her chest. The scream was also coming from Nangong Yue'er. Feeling the pain in her chest, Nangong Yue'er's face was extremely ugly. She had not expected that during this contest, Baili Hongzhuang would actually be able to hurt her. The most important thing is that she did not even see when Baili Hongzhuang had attacked her. After everyone noticed the blood oozing out of her chest, their eyes once again landed on Baili Hongzhuang, but this time the glances were completely different. Who would have thought that the winner of this battle would actually be Baili Hongzhuang? You actually dare to hurt me? Nangong Yue'er raised her voice. She had never met anyone who dared to hurt her since she began cultivating in Lingyin College. Baili Hongzhuang looked at Nangong Yue'er as if she was looking at a fool. Wasn't this woman simply too stupid? Chapter 753. Nangong Yue'er lost. If the third princess is afraid of being wounded, then it is better to not participate in this tournament. Baili Hongzhuang was indifferent. Even if Nangong Yue'er's talent was good, her heart and behavior made it impossible for her to have much success in the future. It is difficult to gain strength if one was not constantly fighting on the line between life and death. One needed to experience certain risks. However, Nangong Yue'er could not even stand this wound. So how could her achievements be good? That is awesome. Hongzhuang is too good. This useless princess thought she was so good, but look at the final result. Xia Jiqing's face was filled with excitement. She had not expected that Nangong Yue'er would have said so many words before, and even ridiculed Baili Hongzhuang as a rival prior to the battle. Zhang Yinfeng and the others also held smiles on their faces. The royal family was really not good. At least Nangong Yue'er was way too spoiled, not at all like a cultivator. Nangong Yue'er has only practiced at the academy and at the royal palace. She has never really fought a serious battle before. Although her cultivation base is good, her combat ability is not at all comparable to a cultivator of the same rank. Even if her martial arts are strong, as long as the opponent has some sort of experience, she won't stand a chance. Gong Shaoqing's eyes were flashing with wisdom. Such a practitioner was not all useful. Sometimes, the better the family was, the worse the combat ability of the cultivators, because they were reluctant to be wounded and die. You are completely correct. This is the disadvantage of the royal family. Yunjue nodded slowly and admitted that Gong Shaoqing had seen through the key problem with a simple glance. Gongzi, you have stayed in the Qing dynasty for so long. Do you know if the princes are the same as Nangong Yue'er? Baijinyu could not help but ask. They had only heard about Nangong Aochen's strength being overwhelming. They had no idea if he and Nangong Yue'er were the same. If Nangong Aochen was the same as her, then they did not need to worry. However, Yunjue shook his head. Nangong Aochen is known to be the most outstanding prince of the Qing dynasty. He wields excellent strength. His mind and character have no flaws. He is completely different from the arrogant Nangong Yue'er. It's not only his cultivation base, which is high, he is the real enemy. When he finished speaking, the expressions of the others turned heavy. They had not expected that Nangong Aochen was so powerful. It seems that if they wanted to win the college tournament, they would be very difficult. I believe in the strength of Hongzhuang. Xia Jiqing stubbornly believed that Baili Hongzhuang would win. She had a feeling that she would never lose. The others knew that Xia Jiqing saw Baili Hongzhuang as an invincible general. But even so, they felt some helplessness. Nangong Yujin and Nangong Xiujie did not think that Nangong Yue'er would be seriously injured by Baili Hongzhuang. Nangong Yue'er could not stand the pain. It was impossible for the battle to continue. I did not expect that Baili Hongzhuang actually had some strength. Nangong Xiujie's eyes were filled with surprise, and a touch of interest flashed through. No matter how strong Baili Hongzhuang was, she would definitely be defeated by his hands. Yue'er's temper is a big weakness for her. Even if she has not been defeated yet, she can only lose. Yue'er has never been able to stand the pain. Nangong Yujin was feeling helpless. He knew that with her temper and personality, she could not continue. Chapter 754, Baili Hongzhuang 1. Baili Hongzhuang wins. When the words of the judge fell, everyone knew that Baili Hongzhuang had won and successfully advanced. When Baili Hongzhuang lightly walked down the arena, there was no expression on her beautiful face. This kind of achievement was not enough for her. Nangong Yue'er directly left towards the Lingyin college to deal with the injury. Before she left, the hatred in her eyes was even more intense. The Qing dynasty was her turf, and the man she wanted was grabbed by Baili Hongzhuang. Now she had even dared to hurt her. She would never let Baili Hongzhuang leave this country alive. However, Baili Hongzhuang did not care about her threat at all. If a threat alone had the power to kill her, then she would have died many times over already. Unfortunately, there were many people in the world who wanted her to die, and if they continued to cause trouble, she would help them on the way. Master, this disgusting princess is really annoying. Why not just directly kill her? Little Black's eyes flashed with anger. She was just a simple princess, but she dared to threaten its owner, simply courting death. Yes, she will definitely find troubles for you in the future. It is better to kill her for our own survival. Little White and Little Black were both very straightforward creatures. They would never drag on anything that could be solved fast, and their ideas had always been to kill fast. The phoenix eyes of Baili Hongzhuang flashed with a cold light as she smiled slightly. "Don't you worry, I have not gone easy on the enemy." Listening to Baili Hongzhuang, Little Black and Little White were both enlightened. According to her words, she had already begun her revenge. Not waiting for Little Black and Little White to ask, Baili Hongzhuang had already returned to the ranks of the Kangling College students. When they saw the return of Baili Hongzhuang, Xia Jiqing was the first to rush up. "Hongzhuang, you are simply too great. Nangong Yue'er's just unfortunate that her fighting ability is not too good." Baili Hongzhuang said slowly. Nangong Yue'er was usually so proud of her own strength. Not only was her strength outstanding, but her background was also very strong. However, they could never have thought that she was just a paper tiger. As long Baili Hongzhuang realized this, she could have solved the battle long ago, but she did not. Listening to the judgment from Baili Hongzhuang, Yunjue's eyes also showed signs of praise. The comparison between Baili Hongzhuang and Nangong Yue'er was such that Nangong Yue'er would lose on all fronts. Huan Yulong's face was very ugly. He did not expect that Baili Hongzhuang was at the second layer of the Red Realm. As long as he had known about this, he would not have promoted the battle. As a mentor of Nangong Yue'er, he was also very familiar with her strength. Although Nangong Yue'er was in the second layer of the Red Realm, it was only achieved under the accumulation of countless resources, and there was a certain gap when she was compared to other cultivators. However, a rank meant that one still wielded a certain amount of strength, so if the opponent was weaker than her, then it was highly likely that she would have one. Who would have thought that Baili Hongzhuang was actually also at the second layer of the Red Realm? Damn, I did not see through the cultivation base of Baili Hongzhuang. Huan Yulong was deeply annoyed in his heart. He had previously noticed Baili Hongzhuang, but there seemed to be an invisible energy shielding her. He could not accurately judge her cultivation base. You're tuning into the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.